Because Carlos is more good.
No, so we gotta wear it.
Well,
Still goes fine.
I'd have to go to my truck.
I had purpose on it.
I think.
We do think.
Sorry, stupidity is still
What?
Yeah.
If OSHA's stupid, then.
I've known OSHA stupid for a long time. We're not live.
You're good, like Keith.
Good. We're talking about.
Even the governor is California agrees with me. That shows you how far wackadoodle he is. And I'm following the science. I'm sorry, I'm just following the science.
It is.
Mike's around there for a second.
Still want to.
Where's my agenda?
You're unmuted.
Good.
Yes. Thanks for live.
We're hot, yep.
All right, where are the high school kids?
They're outside.
Okay. Should I go get them and let them down?
High school kids.
We got public comment first.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready to resume the meeting?
Yes.
Seems like it. Thanks for your patience. We are going into the regular board meeting, which opens up with public comment. This time is for information from the public on matters not appearing on this agenda or within the consent calendar. All comments are limited to 3 minutes and must pertain to matters within the jurisdiction of this board. When addressing the board, please state your name for the record and address the board as a whole through the chair. No action or discussion will be conducted on matters not listed on the agenda. However, the chair may refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up or schedule the matter on a subsequent board agenda. With that, we'll open up for public comment. Is there anybody in the room wishing to make public comment?
Good morning, Chair, Supervisors, Lisa Wright from Lewiston. I was hoping to see something on the agenda today regarding the potential extension of the existing urgency ordinance. It appears that staff has been directed to do some other urgency ordinance stuff that's later on the agenda. But the current urgency ordinance and the unveiling of the transition plan is critical. We only have 3 months left. I'm a co-owner of a company that has over 100 clients in the county program. We're pushing forward with an existing ordinance with CEQA mitigation measures with a final EIR to prepare them, and the county is not prepared. How are you going to get prepared? Why isn't this being talked about? Why isn't it on the agenda today? This is really imperative for the economic well-being as well as the well-being of over 300 and some existing small businesses with employees and families, and I just don't understand why this isn't being brought forth. So I urge you, please, to agendize this for the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Tom Malenko, Douglas City. I wanted to talk about a cannabis licensing problem that's nobody's fault. As most of you recall, when we were crafting the Trinity ordinances regarding licensing, we were actually ahead of the game. Most of our ordinances preceded CDFA regulations. As this is the unfortunate case, after we got a lot of our groundwork done already, CDFA came up with a new license type. It was not in Prop 64, it was not in the original MRSA. It's a logical license. It is for processing, which is the taking of cannabis and to a central location, trimming, curing, drying. Rather than having trimmers go out into all the locations, it allows for central processing, essentially. That license was created by CDFA after we had done virtually all the licenses we have. So Trinity doesn't have an ordinance for it. So we produced an ordinance for it because many of us, I think, would like to do processing. I know I would. And I think it's a good license type for the county, because if you look at some of the impacts that we hear about, traffic on some of our smaller roads is one of them, and that traffic is worst at harvest time when we have to have workers go out to all these isolated farms. It's better if we can bring that to a more appropriate location that has, you know, sewers and parking and served by highways. So I know we're about to look at a retail ordinance sometime soon. My suggestion is maybe we just tag this onto that. I don't think it's a super controversial one. We already have ordinances for manufacturing and distribution. I think are very analogous to the same activity. I didn't do it yet. I would be happy to draft a template. I know county council and staff has got their hands full doing a bunch of things. Not saying to use anything on that template, but put it through the public process. You know, it's got to go to the PC, it's got to come back to you. But it's a fairly simple license type, but I think it would benefit the county. So, like I said, I'm happy to do a template. Certainly, anybody else can do one too. But I'd love to see that tag along with the retail ordinance. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Okay, Tammy, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Tammy Brazil of Douglas City, and I'm here because I'd like to talk about we need retail in Trinity County. Proposition 64, which legalized cannabis, requires grant funds to provide to local governments to assist law enforcement, fire protection, and other local programming to address public and health safety standards. Trinity County received $1 million in grants, money in the round one for the Sheriff's Department. That got through due to the fact retail ordinance was on, at that time, going through planning. It went through 2 attempts and then it was shelved. Trinity County is not eligible for further grants on Prop 64 Round 2, which is going to be up to $44 million, and right now it's standing at $21 million as of yesterday. That could be helped with probation department, education, and youth services, youth development, public health, public safety, environmental impacts, support youth development, prevention, and intervention. Funded activities can include peer mentoring, job training, apprenticeships, substance use education, and youth outreach programs. This would address last week's Trinity Journal headlines and discussed here at the Board of Supervisors. Youth feel isolated. We could get grants for that, but in order to get grants, we have to have retail. That's the law, okay? Without retail, it is governments that allow for retail sales are eligible to apply. That was drafted by the Weaverville Chamber Board and to the BOS to encourage an ordinance allowing for cannabis retail via a director's use permit in zoning districts that allow retail as permitted use with streamlined application process with no additional performance beyond state regulations. These are the state regulations that must be filed. This is how intense they are just for a retail location. We had 2 people snafu that effort. One person we know who's going to do that because he'll never support cannabis. The other was a consultant, okay, who business is CUPs. So unnecessary CUPs and other onerous requirements are just padding the pockets of consultants and jamming our planning department and planning commissioners, taking a couple of years to get through some of these CUPs. Trinity needs retail cannabis, safe access for medical and adult use. Cannabis has medical benefits, helping people with pain, cancer, Alzheimer's, and dementia. It also helps with opiate addictions, which is very big in this county. The state of California agrees with me. Our local farmers need a place to showcase their products locally, which keeps the money here in Trinity. There is a retail tax, which would highly benefit Trinity on a monthly basis.
Thanks, Tammy. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Emma, is there anybody on Zoom wishing to make public comment?
I have no hands raised and no chats.
All right, and is there anybody in the lobby or in the room wishing to make public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment now and proceed into our presentations from Clerk of the Board. Item 2.1, receive a presentation from Trinity High School's Friday Night Live regarding the youth vaping epidemic in Trinity County. No fiscal impact. I believe we have our presenters in the library coming here shortly. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
You guys have the floor, so however you want to do your presentation, go for it.
All right. Hello, I'm Brendan Dunlap. I am the president of Friday Night Live and a senior at Trinity High School.
I'm Cora Barker, and I'm the vice president of Friday Night Live.
I'm Aiden Austin, and I'm the co-vice president at Trinity High School.
I'm Austin Manson, and I'm just a member. Thank you for having us today. We are here to talk to you about youth vaping issues in Trinity County. Who are we? We are Friday Night Live, and we are an organization that gives youth the opportunity to have leadership roles in our community. And right now, we are using that to fight youth substance abuse. And what projects have we done in the past that showcase this? We have participated in something called Sticker Shock, which is consumer education. We put stickers on containers of alcohol that give youth drinking facts like mortality rates and things like that. We've also participated in merchant education, which is talking to the merchants who are selling tobacco and alcohol. We've done morale boosters for our school, like handing out coffee and ice cream during finals week. We have participated in Casey's Pledge, which is a promise which is a promise that youth take in order to say that they will not drink and drive. What projects do we have planned for the future? In the future, next year, our senior and final year at Trinity High School, we are planning on doing a program called Every 15 Minutes, and that is to stimulate thought in the youth brain about drinking and driving and the issues with it. It's very emotional, and it causes a lot of thought to go on. It's very detailed, so I won't go into it now, but that's just one we have planned. We also plan to go to a youth summit down in Anaheim, which will build on our skills to help us benefit our community. And recently, we have partnered with HRN since January, I believe, to increase our effectiveness with this slide. Yeah, do you guys have the presentation?
No. Might we have slides for this presentation?
Yes, I do have some slides. Just let me know whenever you want them up.
I think they're ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. So what are vapes and e-cigarettes? There are many different kinds, and they come in different shapes and sizes. Some are disposable, one-time use, and some are refillable. But their main goal is to heat e-liquid and emit a nicotine-containing aerosol. Some people make the argument that vapes are not dangerous because they produce vapors, but this could not be farther from the truth. They actually produce an aerosol. An aerosol is a mixture between states of matter, whereas a vapor is a gas, and an aerosol is a mixture of gas and a solid. So this aerosol is basically a gas cloud that contains heavy metals, carcinogens, and other toxins. And when you inhale it, it'll leave a coating of these things behind. This is as opposed to the burning of the tobacco leaf, which just is inhaling smoke. This actually covers your lungs in carcinogens, heavy metals, and other things that you don't want there. E-liquids can contain other things too, like nicotine, which is a toxin, and then a stimulant that takes the brain. Slide. So what is nicotine? It's a toxic, colorless, or yellowish oily liquid that is a chief active constituent in tobacco. It acts as a stimulant in small doses, but in larger doses it blocks nerves and muscle cells. It is also used in insecticides. Slide.
So your brain continues to grow until you are about 25 years old. And new memories and things learned build connections in that brain. And this happens faster in young people's brains. And addiction can be a form of learning. And this happens more easily with people who are younger because they learn quicker. Slide. The tobacco industry is constantly looking for new ways to market to youth and get them addicted to their products. Here are 3 pictures of vapes that are currently being sold. So the picture on the left shows vapes that are modeled after a popular candy. The middle picture shows vapes that have cartoon characters on them. And the picture on the right shows vapes that are flashy and brightly colored. These are all marketed to get youth's attention and to get them to use their products. Slide. E-liquids are what go into vapes. Most contain nicotine. There are currently over 15,500 e-liquid flavors. E-liquids come in fruit, dessert, and candy flavors, which can be very appealing to children. Some e-liquids on the market come in flavors like the ones you see here, which include Unicorn Frappe, Fanta, which mimic a popular fruit soda that teens drink, and candy. They are usually sold in small bottles like these with bright and colorful pictures on them. Slide. So e-cigarettes and vapes use a battery to heat up a special liquid into an aerosol that users inhale. It is not just harmless water vapor. The e-juice that fills the cartridges usually contains nicotine, flavorings, and other chemicals. Studies have found that even e-cigarettes claiming to be nicotine-free contain trace amounts of nicotine. Additionally, when the e-liquid heats up, the more toxic chemicals are formed. What researchers do know is that these toxic chemicals and metals have been found in e-cigarettes. Nicotine, propylene glycol, which is a common additive in food. It's also used to make things like antifreeze, paint solvents, and artificial smoke in fog machines. Carcinogens, chemicals known to cause cancer, including acetaldehyde and formaldehyde. Acrolein, which is a herbicide primarily used to kill weeds and can cause irreversible lung damage. Diacetyl, a chemical linked to lung disease called operlin. Diethylene glycol, which is a toxic chemical used in antifreeze that is linked to lung disease. Heavy metals such as nickel, tin, and lead. Cadmium, a toxic metal found in traditional cigarettes that causes breathing problems and disease. Benzene, a volatile organic compound found in car exhaust. And ultrafine particles that can be inhaled deep into the lungs. Slide.
So earlier this year, Trinity County students participated in the California Healthy Kids Survey. This is an anonymous survey offered to all schools and reports direct information from students on subjects like school climate and health. I would like to share some data in regards to vaping. The question most asked of students was if they had ever used an electronic cigarette, e-cigarette, or vape. For 7th graders, 5% of students answered yes in 2015 to 2017, 14% answered yes in 2018 to 2019, and in 2021 and 2020, the most recent survey, 18% answered yes. For 9th graders, 27% answered yes in 2015 to 2017, 19% answered yes in 2018 to 2019, and 23% answered yes this year. For 11th graders, juniors, 37% of students answered yes in 2015 to 2017, 25% answered yes in 2018 to 2019, and 42% answered yes this year. Additionally, alternative schools participated in the survey this year and have shown that 69% of students had at one point used a vape or e-cigarette. Slide. Here are some additional data from the California Healthy Kids Survey. This year, students were asked the difficulty of obtaining vape products. This is who thinks it is very easy to obtain vape products. 19% of 7th graders, 41% of 9th graders, 34% of 11th graders, and 64% of alternative school students. Slide. So these next few slides are going to be information that School Intervention Officer Carolyn Atterbury has collected from this school year and has allowed us to share with you. Officer Atterbury has been conducting tobacco intervention education classes to students referred to her for vaping or possessing tobacco on school campus. This school year, she has conducted a total of 16 group classes, totaling 55 students. This is a picture of some of the vapes that have been confiscated from high school students. On the left are refillable vapes with 2 e-liquid containers located at the top. In the middle, you can see the most popular type of vape, disposable vapes. On the right are marijuana vaping devices. A total of 33 high schoolers have been referred to Officer Atterbury. Slide, please. Here's a picture of vapes that have been confiscated from middle school students. There have been 18 middle school students referred to Officer Atterbury, 8 6th graders, 6 7th graders, and 4 8th graders. Slide. Here are some devices that were found on elementary school students. The one on the left is designed based off of a popular cartoon and lights up. The device on the right is marketed as an all-natural wellness device that contains CBD oil and no THC. After testing it, the device was found to actually contain THC. This device was found on a 2nd grader. 4 elementary school students have been enrolled in her tobacco intervention classes. 1 2nd grader, 2 3rd graders, 1 4th grader. Because of this, Officer Atterbury had to develop an age-appropriate curriculum differing from the one for middle and high school students for these younger elementary school students. Slide, please. Here are some quotes that we have obtained from students about vaping. Every time I try to quit, someone brings a new flavor to school. I don't want to use them, they make me sick. My friends won't let me quit, they will tease and harass me. It has changed many of my friends. You cannot get away from them, almost everyone uses them, they are everywhere. I will not use the restrooms at school because someone is always vaping. I know how bad it is, but I'm going to use regardless. We buy the XXL bangs. This is a vape brand. It is better value for the money. I want to quit for good. I'm going to use my quit plan. I do not want to continue to make big tobacco rich. I don't want to prime my brain for addiction to other drugs. We were supposed to be the first tobacco-free generation and would have been without vaping. Slide, please. Now, how are our youth accessing vape products? Online sales, although this hasn't been significantly reported by our youth. Parents, which is very common for our youth. Older siblings, also common. Shoulder tapping, or our youth asking complete strangers to purchase them tobacco products. In-store purchases where stores do not check IDs in the county. And peers. According to the 2018 National Youth Tobacco Survey, about 72% of middle and high school students vape users report getting the devices from their peers, and our youth access it this way too. Slide, please.
My experience with vapes, I usually go to the park because I live near there, and I go there when I go visit every now and then, and it hurts me to see that children around my brother's age are there vaping and like using bongs and stuff, and I hate to see it.
So during the school year, students at Trinity High School felt a drastic change. It was decided that bathrooms were to always be locked outside of break and lunch periods. To use the bathroom during class, you had to sign your name and receive a key from the school office, and only one person could go at a time. So if there was someone already in the bathroom, you'd have to wait however long it took them to use the bathroom. Additionally, backpacks always had to be left in office at all times. So vaping and other issues occurred so much this year at Trinity High School that all students had to undergo serious regulation of bathroom use. In my personal experience as a girl, finding a girl or group of girls hanging out in the bathroom vaping was almost a daily occurrence. It was also a daily occurrence to smell fruity flavors of the flavored vape products in the bathroom. It was also common for fights to break out between girls, sometimes over vapes or the sharing of vape products. It happened so much that one of our mirrors in the girls' bathroom got broken during a fight.
During my time as a pure court juror, almost all the times, I would say 9 out of 10 times, the cases have been about vaping issues and problems with vaping either at school or out of school where they were giving to someone else or they got convinced by other people. And it's just really sad to see that people can get convinced to do something like that.
Vaping is such a powerful issue that you wouldn't expect to find it everywhere, but you would find it everywhere. You even find it in a club that was built to counter vaping issues and tobacco usage. When I was in middle school, I went to a leadership conference with the main message of being anti-tobacco and anti-alcohol, just anti-substance abuse in general, especially in youth. And I ended up working with 2 people from my county, and during that time, they had smuggled a vape into the dorm room. I hid it from the teachers for them. I didn't tattle on them because they said that it wasn't dangerous and it was fine. I have always been opposed to smoking because I've been around a lot of adults that smoke, and it's always pungent, repulsive. It always made me feel so uncomfortable, and always made it hard to breathe. But vaping didn't seem the same. It had just come out. It was completely new. Nobody knew if there were any effects, but the people who were using it started saying that there weren't any effects. And one of the main reasons I stayed away from it, the smell and taste, was gone. I tried vaping, and the scariest part was it wasn't bad. It tasted good. It seemed like a completely good experience. It wasn't unpleasant at all. And that made it seem so much more addictive than regular nicotine products. And since then, I've made a vow to myself that I would try to help other people quit, and I would try to fix the issue in our community because it's higher in Trinity County. You saw from the graphs. Usage is up. Almost 50% of juniors have used vaping products, even just once. And that's scary because they're going to go to their friends, get their friends addicted. And it's just a vicious cycle. So it's been my personal mission to end the vaping epidemic, or at least in this county, contribute to it, start a movement. And if we could fix the vaping problem here, my personal mission won't be in vain, because I know it'll spread.
Next slide, please. What is a tobacco retail license? It's basically a license which stores use to show that they are allowed to sell tobacco-related products. Currently, all tobacco retailers are required to have state licenses, which sets a very low restriction on the retailers themselves. We would like to propose a kind of license that is more restrictive than the state license and that will keep tobacco out of the hands of our local youth. Next slide, please. Here are the current tobacco sales laws as set by the state of California and the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. The minimum age to purchase any tobacco product is 21. This used to be a California law, but is now a federal law as of December 2019. And there's no exemption for military personnel. Both these entities regulate how tobacco products can be displayed. California requires every store to have a license to sell tobacco. The state also limits signage on a windows to 33%.
Slide, please. Here's our proposal. We would like to propose a local license that would be required for any store or business in Trinity County to sell tobacco products. Additionally, signage would only be allowed to cover 15% of windows, flavored tobacco would not be allowed to be sold whatsoever, and the sale of tobacco products would be prohibited within 1,000 feet of use-sensitive areas. Fees from the local license would fund the cost of administration, education to retailers in the county, and enforcement. Slide, please. Under our proposal, we are recommending a flavored tobacco restriction. As explained earlier, flavored tobacco products are a major problem with our youth and for youth across the nation. A majority of teens use vape products and e-cigarettes, use and prefer flavored tobacco products. Another important fact that should be stated is that for most youth who start smoking, they start with a flavored product. Slide, please. Our proposal also includes that a tobacco retail license may not be issued to retailers within 1,000 feet of youth-populated areas. That would include schools, recreation facilities, and parks, to name a few. Under the proposal, any retailer within this 1,000 feet would only be able to apply for the license once and cannot renew this license after 1 year.
So in April of 2021, Human Response Network conducted an online survey regarding tobacco use, tobacco harms, and the tobacco industry's marketing ploys. Approximately 110 people participated in the survey. 76% of those who took the survey think tobacco use is a problem in Trinity County. And 89% think youth tobacco use is a problem here. We have a youth vaping problem. The community is becoming more aware of the harms that tobacco has on our youth. Now it is the time to save the next generation of Trinity County youth. slide. Thank you so much for having us. Do you guys have any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. It takes a lot of courage. Good job up there. Supervisors, go ahead.
I have a couple questions. How many people, percentage-wise, do you think vape at Trinity High?
I would say it's at least half.
Do you think when they get caught, the penalty is severe enough?
As someone who has also participated in peer court, I believe that the penalties they experience are beneficial. They oftentimes experience tobacco education and stuff like that. We do believe that the penalties are severe enough, but we think that we should stop it from the source.
Okay, so I have a little problem with that. Do you know my son Ryan Gogan?
Yes.
Does he get on pretty good about the vaping at the school?
I think he does a good job.
So I do own a store, Douglas City store within 1,000 feet of a school, Douglas City School, we've had it for 25 years. We check 3 times a year from tobacco and alcohol, we've never failed. We don't sell tobacco or alcohol to underage people. And something else that just happened this year, I think it was that there was a bill going to be passed to eliminate flavored tobacco. And the reason that it failed was Big Tobacco wanted to keep menthol cigarettes and flavored chewing tobacco on the market. So if you get any input or have any input into the way that bill is written, you should make it a little more concise where it has to do with, there's not going to be big tobacco. Make it a little bit more concise to where it only includes vaping and vaping type products. And I don't know how you come up with 15,500 flavors of anything. That seems a little bit odd to me, but that's the reason that was turned down. They got 1 million signatures to turn it down. I think it comes back up at the end of the year for a revote. And I think that if you narrow the scope of that down somewhat, you might do a little better on that. Thank you guys, though. Great job.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Sorry,
Can I
go
say
ahead.
something?
Yeah, of course.
So the FDA has to approve these flavors, that's why there's an official count. But even if we eliminate flavored tobacco and vaping, there's always a chance that these kids are already addicted. They can't make the decision themselves. Their brains are fully developed. Even if they will be in the coming years, they already have tobacco in there. So if they just move on to flavored smoking, then what have we really done? Because they're addicted, they're going to keep trying to get to nicotine. But they're not old enough to make that decision for themselves. We're trying to stop access to flavored tobacco because that's what's drawing them in. And I understand that Douglas City School or Douglas City Store has done very well. I live by there, so I know you guys. I see you guys all the time. I go there all the time. But just because you are one store that does it doesn't mean there aren't other stores out there that don't. I don't think I'm allowed to say names, but we do know that youth are getting them from somewhere, and I doubt they're driving an hour to Reading to go where more law enforcement are.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a quick question, and thank you, kids, for your hard work and your effort. I appreciate your passion and the hard work that you've done to look into details. I was wondering, Brandon, if you had any idea, you said that you tried the vaping one time, and your statistic for juniors having tried vaping at least once was the 50%. If you had any idea how many kids like yourself may have tried it only once, and like you decided that that was not a good idea.
Based on, I know a lot of people at Trinity High School, and based on that, not a lot. Not a lot of people have that kind of, I have a strong base against tobacco, and once I kind of correlated vaping to tobacco, it kind of just fell apart for me, and I didn't want to be a part of it. But it's not stopping anybody. You saw from the quotes, I know it's bad, I'm going to keep using. So maybe a few people have made the decision to not do it, but it's not a lot because we're still seeing it, even with the bathrooms closed, even with all of the regulations the state has imposed. We're still seeing vaping everywhere around school, out of school, in our parks, in our elementary schools. It's scary to me that third graders are getting put into anti-tobacco classes because they were caught with a vape with THC. or
I
with
think-
cartoon characters.
And that probably stems from, more of the family and things like that. And I think the education side is still going to be just as important to any, retail restriction and things like that. Educating it, so like you guys have done for yourselves to find that confidence. I think that's the biggest value that's going to last the longest time.
What makes the difference between you who tried it one time and has the fortitude to give it up after one time or two times, and the person like my son who's never tried tobacco in any way, shape, or form? It was easy for him to get, easy for you to get. Why do you think you tried it? You probably get, I see it all the time. Were you just
Well, I'm sure your son.
curious?
Huh?
Curious? Other people were doing it, you thought it might be the right thing?
At the time, I didn't know anything about it, and the students ensured that it was completely safe. It didn't taste bad, it was flavored, so I would enjoy the experience. And I guess I just wasn't strong-willed enough. I would be very proud that your son was strong-willed enough to resist peer pressure, because it's there and it's strong.
I think his parents would have killed him.
Well,
I'm not sure.
just a little personal note. Hi, Mom. I'm pretty sure my mom's watching this. I never told her I vaped.
Good luck.
Yeah, I need it.
Any other questions? All right, thanks for your time, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will go into the consent calendar. These items include routine, non-controversial matters and will be acted upon the board by one roll call motion. If a member of the public has any questions or comments on an item on the consent calendar, they may provide them now. If a member of the board or staff may request an item be pulled and considered separately. We're going to go into auditor controller, item 3. Oh, I apologize. Are there any items wishing to be pulled?
I have several. 1, 2, 12,
What do you want?
3.1,
3.1.
3.2,
Okay.
3.12,
3.1, 3.2. What was the next one, Jill?
12,
12?
3.20, 3.21, and 3.22.
Were you able in advance of the meeting to make some of your inquiries?
Yes.
All right. Are there any additional polls from supervisors? Any polls from the public? Looks like none. That could take motion.
I'll move to accept the consent agenda minus the items that Supervisor Cox.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion from Supervisor Groves and a second from Supervisor Frazier. Please pull the board.
Supervisor Frazier, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Braun?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 3.1, approve amendment number 3 to the agreement with Larry Olston, extending the term to June 30th of 2024, increasing the maximum cost to $23,000 per month to provide public defender services, increase in general fund expenses of $3,500 per month, total cost per month $23,000. Looks like, Angela, the floor is yours. Or,
That'll be Christine.
oh, sorry.
I'm Christine Daphne from the Auditor Controller's Office. So my question really is just the fact that, I mean, we can all see it, that the cost has escalated, is almost doubled over the last, 5 to 7 years. And I just was wondering if, can we do any better? I mean, is just,
Well,
does the cost of doing it?
The cost actually hasn't doubled. It's actually gotten better. The prior public defender, we would have to pay their contract, and then outside of their contract, we'd have to pay the expert witnesses, investigators. Under the current contract now that we have with Larry Olson and Miller, they actually pay, under the contract, their investigator services they're expert witnesses, and their overhead costs, they have staff to pay, and their caseload is so large that sometimes they have to hire other attorneys. And it all comes out of the amount that we pay them per month.
Any questions from the board?
What am I missing then? Is this one of those things where when the contract grows, we're just looking at a total cost? Because it looks like it's per month that it's going up.
It's per month. It's going up $3,500 per month for the next 3 years. So it stays at that rate, at that dollar amount, $23,000 per month for the full year. Whereas right now, for the past 3 years, it was $19,500.
Is there a typo under the fiscal impact? It says total cost per month 23,000, or that is the
Total cost per month is $23,000 per public defender, which we have two.
oh.
Do you know the cost of our public defender prior to the Larry Olson contract, since they are doing everything umbrella-wise, detectives, back?
I actually have, I don't know if I can push the board or if someone needs to come get it, but I do have a graph here showing you from 2011-12 up to the estimation all the way through 22-24. What the cost, I think that should be enough. There might be one, I believe, for.
When did Larry Olson take over?
Let's see, Larry Olson, they started on July 1st, 2015.
15, you said?
Uh-huh. I have more things to do now. So as you can see under it, they have their contracted amount, but he also had a lot of conflict, so he had to conflict out to other attorneys, and that raised the cost. So we were paying the cost of not only that contracted amount, but we're paying attorneys outside of that. Under Larry and Ken, that's all within the contracted amount, so we're not having to pay out as much. And you'll see in 2014-15, we didn't have a contract at all. And that is probably one of the higher ones, besides 15-16, where we had to continue to pay the prior public defender because he had cases open while we started the contract with, the new contract with the new public defenders. And then as you can see later on, it has somewhat decreased. And in the next 3 years, if this amendment is approved and we choose to contract with them for the next 3 years, and now that's all estimated because we have no idea how many cases are going to come. It all depends on, how many cases there are. It's all, the majority of it's all under the contracted amount. They're not having we're not having to pay as many outside attorneys or investigators and whatnot.
Okay, thank you. I'm good with it as long as we're doing as best as we can do. And when I read the packet, it just looked to me like it was increasing a little bit exponentially from last year to this year. Seeing that it stays the same, and if you're comfortable that we're doing the best that we can.
Yes. Well, they originally asked when we were negotiating with the auditors, negotiating with them. They originally asked for $25,000, and the auditor stated, "Well, would you work with 23?" And they were willing. They have the county's best interest in mind, and they're very hardworking individuals.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks for the chart. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions from the board? Technical questions? Is there any public comment on this item out there?
I have no hands raised and no new chats.
Okay, then we can entertain a motion.
I would move to adopt 3.1 and 3.2 as presented.
Oh, we can't bundle them up like that?
Oh.
That was just 3.1, right?
It's 3.1 first.
Yeah.
That will be the 3.1 that's presented.
I'll second.
All right. The motion from Supervisor Cox, a second from Supervisor Groves. Then please pull the board.
Supervisor Groves,
Aye.
happy, thank you. Supervisor Cox? Yes. Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Thank you. Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Next item, we're gonna approach it.
Oh, great. It's going to be the same explanation. I'm good.
Yes,
So,
So I'll still go ahead and read it for technicality purposes. Item 3.2, approve amendment number 4 to the agreement with Kenneth Allen Miller, extending the contract to June 30th, 2024, and increasing the contract maximum to $23,000, increase in general fund expenses of $3,500 per month, total cost per month $23,000. Is there any public comment on this item, Emma?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
All right, we'll entertain a motion.
Go ahead, Joe.
no, it's fine. I would move to approve item 3.2 as presented.
I will second.
You know the routine.
Motion by Supervisor Cox, second by Supervisor Gogan. Supervisor Gogan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Thank you. Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, motion passes. 3.12, general services. Approve amendment number 1 to the agreement with Haynes Flooring, increasing the maximum cost by $80,000 to remove and replace floor coverings in various county facilities, up to $130,000 from departments requesting services. And who's the main contact here? Is this you, Richard?
I'll take it.
All right.
And Susie's on the line if need be.
And Joe. Sorry, Supervisor.
So I did have the conversation with General Services and with our CIO yesterday. And I guess just ultimately, I am concerned about putting a blanket $130,000. If we're just looking at aesthetics, it might be better to look at maybe some deferred maintenance that are just worried about the priority, and my thing's always risk management. And if I'm just concerned about putting a blanket stamp of approval on $130,000 when I haven't seen it, or like as I expressed, if there's a tripping hazard or if there's something that is going to be dangerous to somebody, absolutely, we don't want that. But if we just are, there might be better places to spend our money.
How many departments have requested the flooring services?
Oh, I think we have about 4 or 5 right now. There's only 2 that actually have the revenues to do it. So what this is it increases the contract, so it allows the county to enter into the contract up to that amount if we have that much work to be provided. Right now, the 2 that I'm well aware of is one is our new cannabis building, which are around $19,000 to do the carpet there. And I would make the recommendation that we do that, because if we don't, we're going to hold up the completion of that building, because we can't put in the cubicles and finish some of the wiring electrical until the carpet is in. So that one, and we do have outside revenues besides general fund. The other one would probably be Department of Transportation. Again, those are funds outside general fund. We have the courthouse and juvenile hall, and these will be discussed really in next year's budget. I don't want to tell juvenile hall that right now I would deny it, because that's something that we would be working on in the 21-22 budget, and we'd have to identify the revenues through general fund if necessary. The one in the courthouse, I will probably be working with risk management to see if there's a trip and fall hazard. If it's just cosmetic, we can do something else, as Supervisor Cox says, maybe steam clean and do some general patchwork. But if there's trip and fall hazards, then it becomes a liability of the county, then we would go from there. So though it's $130,000, there's no revenues allocated to that right now. The departments that are requesting would have to identify the revenues. So it's not guaranteed that we would spend it. It would be reviewed on a case-by-case basis.
But the Canada Department one will be spent.
I'm going to make that recommendation, absolutely, yes.
What was the cost of that?
About $19,000.
20 grand?
Yeah.
Well, there's just wood, there's just whatever subflooring in there.
Right now, it's just the old, if there's asbestos tile that we can't pull up, we have to cover.
I see.
Any thoughts about recarpeting this place? If not, that doesn't look great.
I would love to have funding in our budget to clean up our boardroom and make it much more appealing to both the board and the public. But again, sometimes it's opportunity cost. If we spend $1 here, we can't spend $1 there. So that's what we have to break it down by.
Do we have an ongoing contract with Haynes Flooring? And would it not be just kind of neighborly to talk to Dave there, Dave's?
We have this current contract, and then when it expires, that's general services if they would go out to another RFQ or not. So that I need to look into.
Any additional questions from the board? Is there any public comment on it?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
So I'm not sure how you handle it as far as the motion would be concerned, but I would be more in favor of letting the current contract expire, letting us go ahead and put it out to bid for somebody locally to handle something if we are going to move forward with different departments that have their revenue and that's budgeted and it's all great.
That's I take direction from the board. It would definitely prolong the completion of our cannabis building.
Oh, we don't have enough left in the balance because I thought it was 50 and we're increasing by 80.
I would have to check. I don't think so. Susie's on the line. She can pull the numbers, but I was under the impression that we would need it for that also. But if
Oh, I think you're right because you told me there was 12 and you need 19.
yes.
Okay. I don't want to delay anything.
Is there?
That might be Susie. No, it's not.
Okay, well, considering this discussion, what options do we see, like how to handle this?
Well, it's either deny or approve right now, and then we could bring it back with a different dollar amount at the next board meeting. I believe that would be it. Once again, I'm waiting for Susie to get online, so she can give me the exact amount. I presume the board could change the dollar amount if they would like. Yeah, so if they do change the dollar amount, I would ask that we leave the $19,000 in for the cannabis. And we have Director Tippett in here right now. Is a trip hazard.
It's already done.
What's that?
We ordered them before we did earlier, so that,
Because as the board knows, we're doing the budget for 21-22, and all fixed assets have to be put into that, which you'll see in another presentation later when we adopt the budget. We go through those, and just because they're in it doesn't mean they're going to be approved. We go through and review each of them, and we will probably strike quite a few of them, and then we come to the board in September with the final budget, and the board has an opportunity at that time too to strike some of the fixed assets and maintenance. So this one is a little bit different because it's later in the year, but normally the board does approve in the final budget all fixed assets for the county. So you would agree?
we had used up capacity in that contract earlier this year with replacing some flooring in the office. Give you an example, one of the offices where our engineer says he had rolled his chair so many times in one spot, it actually started to form a hole in the flooring, so we didn't want them to drop through to the first floor, so we fixed that. And then the carpet in the administrative area makes this carpet look like new, so it was pretty ratty and ready to go. It's been there since the building was built in '73, so it was really on its way out. So as I said, we had used up, he had existing capacity in the contract. It was not to exceed contract. We came in, got our bid, and we used up that portion of the contract. So they weren't, in order for them to do other things that they wanted to do, they needed to increase the contract like they're doing here.
And yeah, we've got $13,000 left in our current contract, and one of the issues with our local vendors is none of them qualify or carry the proper insurance required by the county. So that's why we have to go to outside county vendors.
It does not.
Apparently not. We've got about $3 million in liability.
Okay.
On the backup here, it says Haynes is the only contractor that has agreed to meet the contract requirements of the county. And it's until 11/22. With that, I would move to accept as presented.
All right, I'll second. And then we have a motion from Supervisor Grills and a second from myself. Please poll the board.
Supervisor,
Oh, did I skip public comment?
no, we pulled for public comment.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Supervisor Brown, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox? No. Supervisor Gilpin?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. So, item 3.20, ratify, transportation, ratify the road commissioner's signature on the agreement with Pace Engineering Inc. of Vernon, California to provide right-of-way delineation and services for the removal of hazard trees created by natural disasters, including the 2020 August fire complex. No impact to the general fund, up to $250,000 from the road fund, subject to reimbursement by Cal OES and AMA.
So, sorry to be the problem child here. I'll pull two of these together for really one question. I'm wondering why 3.20 is subject to reimbursement by Cal OES and FEMA and 3.21 isn't.
They're supposed to both be subject to reimbursement. I just didn't copy all the language correctly.
Done. Thank you.
So Rick, in the future, that could be a very costly oversight if we go to vote on that. And I had sent that question to Jill, honestly. Why are we getting our money back for one and not for the other? So that's $250,000 oversight. I hope I don't see that again, if you can do that. Thank you.
Any additional questions from the board?
I was basing, I'm sorry, but if it was a typo, I was still going to have to base my decision on what I was reading here.
Is there any public comment on Zoom?
I see. Oh. I have no new chats and no raised hands.
All right, seeing no public comment in the room, can I entertain a motion?
I have a question first.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that it was left off the agenda does not change the ability for it to be reimbursed, is that correct?
Absolutely not. Yeah, that would not have any difference, because we would always reimburse what we're able to do.
So we can assume it 2.0 and 2.1 read the same at the bottom.
Correct, they both are eligible for reimbursement, there's no need to make a change. It was just additional information for you as part of your deliberative process, but it does make a difference in terms of actually obtaining the reimbursements.
So I guess my question would be, was it a typo, or were we to assume that it was going to be reimbursed?
I apologize, I believe it was stated as a typo. But again, it's just information in the agenda item. It doesn't affect, regardless, it would have been reimbursed.
I think it's important to note that things on the agenda, what we're agreeing to is the contract, and that's what the legal standpoint. And if it was miswritten in the contract, that was a different story. The issues that are on the agenda are not you're not held as liable.
That's correct. We would go off the contract.
And I guess since we're asking the subject to, what do you project the odds are of, what portion of that being reimbursed? Do you have a sense as to what that might be?
Well, the unfortunate thing was we had a very strict and tight timeline. So we went through an RFP process that was extremely abbreviated. It was not following within the full requirements of FEMA. But we were very open on our recruitment. We essentially had to get something in place within a couple days. And we were open to numerous surveying firms. Matter of fact, just about everybody up in the area we asked. And we also hired both the people that did submit requests or proposals. We selected both of them. And so our Cal OES person believes that we will be reimbursed for both of them. But I might also point out, if we didn't do this and we had gone on our own path, this way we get 100% reimbursement. If we had gone the other way, we would have only gotten 75% reimbursement if we had waited and then done the work ourselves. So in a sense, we were really also saving a little bit of money because we have the 100% reimbursement, and the surveying work was not going to make up 25% of the cost of the tree removal.
Rick, will you also, I take offense to we're saving a little bit of money. Will you also explain what we're really saving, about $7 or $8 million, because you were able to negotiate with, and if we paid for the surveying, that we would get the additional $7 million of the $107 million that's going to cost for tree removal. That this is actually a very significant savings to the county.
Yeah, if you do the work yourself and ask for reimbursement, you get back 75%. If you do the work in the what's called the debris removal phase, which is a very tight upfront time period, then you can get 100% reimbursement. And so we were trying to stay within that 100% reimbursement rather than dropping back into the 75% reimbursement. So it's kind of it's a little bit of a shell game, but they were demanding that we have all the surveying done by tomorrow, or actually the 15th today. And we are at about 98% done with private properties. But there is still ongoing discussions about the Forest Service, and this county's going to take the position that the Forest Service trees are not maintenance. They are, maybe Margaret, you can have a better word for it, but I'd say assets to the forest, and so they're responsible for a removal of the tree. If the tree were to fall over across the road, then it would become a maintenance item, but as long as the tree is standing, we believe that it is a asset of the forest, and that they're responsible for removal of that tree. And that's kind of also the position FEMA's taking, and the Forest Service seems to be interested in moving this forward because they see it as a forest harvest. So I think at the end of the day, it might end up working out real well that we get everything taken care of.
Nice, thank you.
Any additional questions? Great. Thank you, Director Kidd.
And again, you can't look on the other. I would move to adopt 3.20 as presented.
I will second.
All right. And then we got a motion and a second.
Motion by Supervisor Cox, second by Supervisor Gogan. Supervisor Gogan?
Yes.
Thank you. Supervisor Groves?
W. Cox, yes.
Supervisor Cox, thank you. I skipped over you. Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Thank you. Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Item 3.21. I gotta read it. Ratify the road commissioner's signature on the agreement with Trinity Zoning Engineers, Inc., Willow Creek, California, to provide right-of-way delineation survey services for the removal of hazard trees created by natural disasters, including the 2020 August fire complex, up to $250,000 from the Road County Fund. Is there any public comment on this item?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
All right. Any additional questions from the board?
I'll move to accept 3.21 as presented, noting that this also is reimbursable by Cal OSHA.
All right, we have a motion. Supervisor Groves, a second from Supervisor Cox. Please call the board.
Supervisor Cox, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Those two, and that takes us to 3.22, Trinity County Transportation Commission adopt a resolution which allocates local transportation funds LTF for fiscal year 21-22, and adopt a resolution which allocates state transit assistance funds to fiscal year 21-22. No impact to general fund, $404,662 from LTF trust account and $86,053 from STA trust account. And we've got Director Tippett coming back, and Supervisor Cox. How do you have a question?
I do. So I don't see anything inherently wrong or anything, nefarious here at all. I just thought it would be good for the public to hear I don't think that every road is included in the spreadsheet. I kind of looked for some and they weren't there. And so how the roads that are chosen get into that graph, the ones that are grayed out doesn't appear to be, am I speaking to the wrong item? I pulled the wrong item.
Okay.
I'm glad everybody read it.
This is,
Right, I'm
this
sorry.
is Transportation Commission and
That's a long line.
Transit.
I'm sorry.
Your other one will be full automatically, because it's a.
Yeah, so public hearing.
So I will move.
Then I didn't want to pull this, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
You want to approve it,
No
Joe?
suspicions, but we let them go anyways.
So I move to approve 3.22 as
Apologize.
read.
I'll second that. And then you have a motion and a second, please pull the board.
Motion by Supervisor Gogan, second by Supervisor Brown. Supervisor Brown, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan,
Aye.
Supervisor Groves,
Aye.
Supervisor Cox,
Aye, with apologies.
Supervisor Frazier.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, motion passes. We're going to go into our public hearing unless, does the board request a 10-minute break beforehand? Hearing none, we're going to proceed into Trinity County Transportation Commission. Put on your commissioner hats. Item 4.1, conduct a public hearing regarding potential unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet. No fiscal impact.
Is this the one you mentioned?
All right, Director Tippett.
And it's very simple. We have, every year, we have to go out and ask the public for unmet transit needs, and then we take those unmet needs that might be presented to us and take them back and analyze them and come back to you as if they are, if we are able to meet those requests or not. And it's essentially like someone came in and said, I want you to run a bus to San Francisco every day. Well, that's a transit need that they might identify, but it would not be reasonable to meet because we don't have that kind of money. So this is an opportunity. We have to do a very set thing, go through a set process, first identifying the terms, which is one that you approved earlier. Now it is actually having a public meeting for people to add their input. And then once the public meeting is closed, we will take any requests that we have and we'll return to you with those that, with the evaluation whether they're reasonable or not to meet. With that, I can answer any questions.
Any questions for Director Tippett? Do we do a public comment on the hearings?
You open it up for public hearing?
All right, is there any public comment on Zoom at all?
I have no raised hands.
Okay, is there anybody in the lobby wishing to make public comment on this item? All right, hearing none, please entertain. We need a motion yet?
No,
No. Thanks, Director Tippett.
you can close the public.
This hearing is closed. And now we go into reports and announcements. Item 5.1, report from department heads.
Chair, if you mind, can I jump in real quick before we have any department heads get up there?
Please.
So, Mr. Tippett, I'm gonna go before you. I'm very pleased to present to the board, we have our Chief Probation Officer here, who we went through a very extensive screening process, and we're extremely proud to have her part of our new executive team. This is Ruby Fierro, is that how I say it?
Yes, sir.
Close enough. So, I'd like to introduce our new Chief Probation Officer to the Board of Supervisors.
Good morning.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you all. Chairman Brown, members of the board, I'm very honored to be able to say that I'm the Chief Probation Officer for your county. Thank you.
I think we're lucky to have you. That's the rumor on the streets.
Glad to hear it.
Are there any questions from the board or anything?
Welcome aboard.
Okay. Okay. Well, I guess that goes back to you, Director Tippett. You're getting exercise today.
Sure. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, a couple things I wanted to just report on. I wasn't sure if I reported last meeting, but I wanted to be sure that I did let you know that the Federal Lands Access grant was submitted for Canyon Creek, and we did have a final cost with escalations of $31 million. Did enter in there that we might look at splitting the project to keep the cost within the ability of where the range that they might be looking at for us to get the grant. But it is submitted, and so we're hoping that we have success on that. Concerning the traffic signal, I did tell you I'd report back every once in a while. The contractor He was required to also go out and get a permit. He's completed that work to get the permit. He's getting his mixed design approved right now and his SWIP, and he is looking at officially starting an August 1st date of everybody out there. But you'll see him out there doing little miscellaneous things before that. But August 1st is the start date. He still agrees that no major traffic disruptions before August 15th, but he should probably around, I'd say, September 15th, be close to being done. The jail is about 99% done. The cleaning is taking place this week. They're actually going in and doing a very deep clean to get all the construction dust out as much as they can. The dry utilities, which are telephone, cable, and internet, are being hooked up this week, and next week, which leads to the furniture coming in and the phone systems and everything. And that's all going to be taking place here over the next couple of weeks. And I'm estimating that by the time we get to July 16th, the Public Works will be turning over the jail completely to the Sheriff's Department, have no longer be involved other than doing the construction closeout stuff. So we're pretty much wrapped up on that. And then one last thing, last meeting there was some questions about the drum grinder that solid waste had picked up, and yes, absolutely we have use for that, and we will utilize it wherever we can. I estimate we probably have $15,000 to $20,000 worth of grindings that we can account for every year. But we did have some discussion beforehand about purchasing it, and the problem was this year I had higher priorities towards pavement to be able to participate in purchasing. But we are going to utilize that thing wherever we can, whenever we can. So I wanted to let the board know that.
Thank you, Director. Are there any other department heads wishing to report?
Kim Hunter, Building and Planning Director. Just real quick regarding our general plan and zoning update project. We had tentatively scheduled a meeting, a kickoff meeting for the 24th of June, so that'd be next week. And that date has come up very quickly. There's been a few miscommunications. And just at this point, I think it's better. We want all board members here and full planning commission when we do that kickoff meeting. This is such an important project and undertaking that will last several years. So to fully understand that project, we need the board and the planning commission to understand how it works and the expectations. So we're going to bump that back a little bit, and we will readjust the schedule. We'll keep moving forward on that project, and we are getting ready to launch the website, and we'll get word out. So the idea was to have the kickoff meeting, then launch the website. We'll just switch those things around. It'll be fine, but we'll keep you updated and make sure we get another date set soon.
What was the previous date again, 24th?
Next week, yeah, next
And we're
Thursday.
going back a little bit?
Yeah.
Could we do it after the 8th? Because
We'll make sure everybody can, we pick a date where everybody can be present.
thank you.
And then also hopefully have a new planning commissioner appointed for your district.
You will, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Was that the reason you asked us for the 24th, so I can cross that off my calendar?
Yes, you can.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other department heads? Liz, I'd seen your hand went up on Zoom.
Yep.
Hi, good morning, Chairman Brown and members of the board. I have a public health update. As we know, we are at June 15th, the much anticipated date in our state as of recent. So I'm going to do a couple of local updates and then state updates for you. Currently in Trinity County, we have 4 active COVID-19 cases ranging from 14 years old up to the age of 65 and over. no cases have been identified in vaccinated individuals. For our vaccine efforts, currently, with the press release that was actually just released on June 11th, we have 2 teams today at the Hayfork, in Hayfork at the Trinity County Fairgrounds. They are there, state team is there from 8:30 to 5:30 today. They are providing both Janssen and Moderna vaccines, and they will also be there tomorrow, Wednesday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Our public health and estate team is on their way to Hyde Palm this morning, and they will be doing a vaccine clinic from, let's see, noon to 2 p.m., and that's at the Hyde Palm Community Hall. Of course, everyone can check myturn.ca.gov for updates. We have shifted our model from doing the large mask pods, and now we are kind of taking road shows, if you will. So our nurses will be going to communities to offer vaccines. Currently, our overall vaccination rate in our county is 36.9%, and additionally, we have 7.7% that are partially vaccinated. I think the state average right now is 62%, so we're shy of that, but working our way, I think, in going to these communities that will help in our effort to at least reduce some barriers to vaccine for those that want it. The state has their Healthy Place Index quartiles. We have 3 of the 4 quartiles in Trinity County. Our focus is on quartile 1, which currently has a vaccination rate of 29%, and those include the areas of Mad River, Xenia, Captain Palm, Hayfork, also including Post Mountain, Wildwood, Hyde Palm, Douglas City, Lewiston, Big Flat, Big Bar, and Del Loma. So our public health team will be traveling to a lot of those areas in the coming months. The HPI quartile 2, we do have a vaccination rate of 32% in those areas, and those communities include the Trinity Center and Coffee Creek, Junction City, Burnt Ranch, Denny, and Salyer. And then the quartile 3, which is Weaverville, we have a vaccination rate of about 47%. We are working on a virtual vaccine dashboard that will be going live. We are hoping and planning by the end of this week. On to state updates. As you know, June 15th, our public health officer has retired the tiered system, and we're moving beyond the blueprint. And so the color systems have gone away. I believe that they will still be reflected on most of the CDPH and the state websites for a period of time, I think over the next 2 weeks. However, there's no restrictions to capacity, physical distancing. What the state's public health officer has put in place basically has 4 primary points. Face coverings still, it still is guidance for face coverings, depending on vaccination or unvaccination status. And so what is consistent is that all persons, regardless of vaccination status, will be required to wear masks. In public transit, in youth indoors, so K through 12 child care settings, the schools are working with the state to update those guidance, and it should be released for the fall sessions. Of course, in correction and detention facilities, homeless shelters, emergency shelters, or cooling centers. So in those areas, face covering will apply. In settings where masks are required for unvaccinated individuals, it will be up to the venue on how to choose to navigate that. They can ask for self-attestation. They can ask for verification. They can require that all persons wear masks. I think we'll see how that unfolds in the coming days and weeks. Of course, exemptions apply for those under the age of 2 or for medical conditions. Masks are not required. That's same guidance. The state in the health officer order, there is going to be continued guidance for mega events. So That includes any event of more than 5,000 people indoor or more than 10,000 people outdoor, so think of sporting events, concerts, etc. There'll be guidance provided, again, for schools. And then public health will continue to monitor and really go back to the traditional workload of communicable disease and how they manage that, contact tracing, investigations, quarantine orders. All those same principles will apply, it's just at a smaller scale. And of course, this information can be found on the CDPH website. What we're all kind of waiting for is Cal OSHA's updated guidance, and I see that Director Nelson is on the phone today, and she might cover that as well. But when it comes to indoor workspaces, we are waiting for Cal OSHA to provide updates after their board meeting on the 17th. I heard that will begin at 10 a.m. and probably last the majority of that day as they review workplace guidance. And so, while citizens of our state have a new set of guidelines, our workspaces do not quite yet, so the previous guidelines are still in full force and effect. And end of report. Thank you.
Liz, this is Keith.
Morning.
Good morning. Thank you for that wonderful report. So I was hearing that Shasta County was having an issue, or that basically the dashboard goes away and they won't be keeping track of, there won't be a place to go and keep track of how many cases are hospitalized. Is that the same case in Trinity County?
Thank you, Supervisor Groves. We have just initiated internal discussions about our transition plan for information sharing with the community. And so I'll have to come back to you on that. I don't have an answer today. I'm not aware of any immediate discussions to remove the dashboard, but to actually add the vaccine dashboard.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Any other department heads reporting out?
I do, whenever you're ready. And mine's the most boring report out of all time. The chair pointed out that we had not reported out a closed session for a few meetings, so I would like to take the opportunity just to make sure we report that out and get it on the record if that is acceptable.
Please, thank you.
Okay, related to the items on May 4th, item 7.1, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, number of cases 2, that matter was continued to May 18th. Item 7.2, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Trinity Institute for Permaculture Farming and Restorative Forestry versus Trinity County. There was no reportable action taken on that item. On May 18th, item 6.1, government under conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, number of cases 1, information was received by the Board of Supervisors. Under item 6.2, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, TAA versus Trinity County, direction was given to staff. On June 2nd, item 1.1, government code, section 54954.5F, conference with labor negotiators, the employee organization, DSA, Police Officers Association, and Skilled Trades, direction was given to negotiators. And item 6.1, Government Code Section 54954.5C, conference with legal counsel, initiation of litigation, number of cases 2, direction was given to staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional department heads reporting out. Anyone on Zoom, Emma?
Shelley, are you wanting to report out? I just wanted to follow up quickly, if that's okay.
Of course.
So Liz gave a great extensive report, and I thank her for that. I just did kind of want to reiterate that the Cal OSHA Standards Board, they've met a few times, and they're meeting again this Thursday, June 17th. So we still are awaiting, an official rulemaking of changes to face masking in the workplace. They have myriad of changes that encompass a great deal more than just the face masking, that has a lot to do with our responses formally to any exposures that we still may have in the workplace, along with a lot of other detail. And we're just basically waiting to see what the final rulemaking will be. And we will continue to keep all department heads and all employees well abreast of those changes, and we'll be updating our appendix to the IIPP, the Injury and Illness Prevention Program. It's a COVID-19 prevention program that is required by Cal OSHA that will keep maintained. So as of right now, there has been no change to the requirements of masking and the rules. Everything is still status quo as it has been. But we're anxious to see some improvements coming up, and we'll keep you posted.
Thank you, Chef. Any additional department heads wishing to report out? All right. Then we can go to...
I guess I have a question for the CAO. Richard, I brought this up earlier. Since Terry doesn't seem to be on the line, could we get an update on where we are on our hiring of our tax expert for cannabis? Now across the second quarter, and I don't know.
Yeah, I can get that information for you. I don't have it in front of me, but I can get that information. I reached out to and haven't heard back. So I will get that information and bring it back to the board. I can send it out by email, and then I can also have Terry present next time too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Richard, did you have any other reports?
I do have a few. Thank you, Chairman Brown and members of the board. One thing, I'm sure you've all received the RCRC notice that both House of Legislation passed Assembly Bill 128, which is our state spending bill. We're going to be watching that real closely because the wording in it gives us some concerns that neither the legislators nor the governor have really agreed on anything except the final number of $264 billion. What brings up some real concerns because some of the larger bills, such as the cap and trade and a lot of the COVID support funding, all those have not been agreed upon yet. So we've got to watch where that goes and how the funding is going to be spent. Because as you know, over $127 million budget, nearly a little over $100 million comes from outside funding sources. There are local funds that come from both state and federal. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that to see what's happening at the state level. On the good news, I'd like to invite the board, if we have time afterwards, to take a field trip through our cannabis building. We're about 95% complete. The board members, we budgeted around $195,000 to do the remodel. I believe we're going to come in right around $145,000 to $150,000, so there's going to be a significant savings in that. Staff has done an amazing job, and I think it's going to be a building that's going to last us for a long time, and we're going to be very proud of. So if the board would like, we can take a walk through there. I think we'll have most of the painting completed, and we're waiting now on bringing in the carpet and then put in the cubicles. So staff says it'll be done July. I'm going to still say we're going to have the building ready by September 1st because I always like to give a little bit of a contingency in there. So, but we're on schedule.
All right. Thank you for that. Members of the Board of Supervisors. How about starting on the left, Supervisor Groves?
Yeah, so 2 items to report on. We had another meeting on the wilderness. First off, the SPI land exchange or land purchase in the north end of the county, which would be Tanglewood at the top of Scott Mountain all the way over into the Castella Wilderness. So we've come to some sort of meeting of the minds of this first group. There will be, at this time, tentatively scheduled a public meeting on July 14th in Trinity Center, the youth hall, to showcase the total land exchange and what might be proposed as wilderness in that process. On TMC, we had an executive committee meeting on the refinements, where we spent our whole time discussing how we get public stakeholders access back into the program after the do away with TAMWAG. I think the important thing to come away with is that the vast majority of the TMC members want a TAMWAG style stakeholder meeting or a committee to advise the TMC There's several alternatives that are being looked at right now, but we hope to, this process, have much stronger stakeholder input and more productive than what we used to have. That's all I have for today.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Cox.
Yeah, just quickly, the town hall meeting that I had last evening was our general manager of Trinity PUD giving that comprehensive report on the whole right-of-way expansion project. There weren't a lot of people on the Zoom meeting, but it was recorded, and Paul did a great job of just being very comprehensive about the whole thing, complete with slides and stats, percentages, projections. So you can visit that. I'll have that link uploaded to my website soon, and you can encourage others to go there. If conversations ensue throughout the community and people want those particulars, that's a great place to go to revisit that and share with others.
All right, thank you. I don't have anything to report out on. Supervisor Gobi.
I also have nothing to report.
Supervisor Brady.
Not a lot. I did meet with Director Tippett after our last meeting when we had the short one, and took a tour of the new jail. That's the first time I've had the opportunity to go through it. It's a pretty nice facility. And then I had a CGT CAP training meeting a couple days ago. So, and that was kind of interesting to go through. Did you do it? Only I missed it.
You're the lead.
So I think that's about it for this.
All right. Well, that is it for reporting out. You guys need to adjourn and all before we continue on? Like you? Anybody going?
I would request 5 minutes and then.
All right.
I would also, or do you want to wait to move the agenda around?
Let's do our break and then we'll move around when we get back. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
How was that training?
It was mostly just
Audio's on. All right. Hey! Where's my wig? All right, into county matters. These items include non-routine or controversial matters and are listed alphabetically by department. A member of the board or staff may request that an item be heard out of order. Board or staff, are there items to be unorganized?
Mr. Chair, I would request that we do the 6.9 up front. We have a large contingent of people that would like to speak that are out in the hall.
All right, are they all still there, ready to go?
Yes.
All right, are there any, I don't object yet. Do we need a motion on that, is that right? Do I just decide?
You got the hammer.
Oh, yep, I approve. Are there any other changes? Okay, then if you can hear us in the lobby, we are going to go into item 6.9 for the Lewiston opt-out. All right, I'll go ahead and read the item here. Item 6.9, planning and zoning. Introduce, waive the reading of, and enact an interim emergency ordinance imposing a temporary moratorium on the issuance of new or the transfer of existing commercial cannabis cultivation licenses in the Lewiston community area. No fiscal impact unknown. When you guys get all settled, we will open it up to Director Hunter.
Chairs.
We can grab more chairs, guys.
Chairs, if you want to come in and get a chair off the side, feel free.
There's chairs if you need them.
Self-serve. Dr. Hunter, whenever you're ready. Go ahead.
As folks get settled, I'll begin the staff report. This is a request for an opt-out. It is expansion of Lewiston opt-out, which is existing, and it is codified in section 17.4.3. This is very similar in nature to the Rush Creek opt-out that is actually coming up for renewal. Some of you may remember that, but I'll go over the details a little bit on an opt-out and where that originates from. So basically, this is a petition as well. The majority of property owners in the area identified, which is a map included in the attachments, which is basically to the south and the west of the existing opt-out. It is being requested regarding public health, safety, welfare of property owners in the area for cannabis, commercial cannabis cultivation. Concerns that brought about this request include, but are not limited to, also environmental issues, including water quality, water quantity, odor, safety, traffic, and cumulative impacts in the area that are a result of commercial cannabis operations. On May 5th, the Friends of Lewiston Grass Valley Creek submitted documents to the Planning Department requesting an expansion of the Lewiston opt-out by approval of the interim ordinance, also attached to the staff report. This would prohibit, should it be approved, the interim ordinance would prohibit the issuance of any new or transfer commercial cannabis cultivation licenses. There are several commercial cannabis licenses applications pending within the proposed opt-out area that would be considered new licenses. The proposed Lewiston opt-out expansion, again, is located to the west and south of the existing opt-out and consists of 125 parcels, 9 which are owned by either the Bureau of Land Management or the state of California. It includes the following individual neighborhoods which have various zoning districts, but the majority of development within the proposed opt-out is rural residential in nature. The identified areas include parcels in the following neighborhoods: Lewiston Road, Steelhead Circle, Browns Mountain Road, Wellock Road, Oak Ranch Road, Benito Way, Lockhart Ranch Road, Loudon View Dirt Road, I missed the bullets there, Ohio Lane, Ponderosa Pines, Riverfront Road, and Coffin Road. While the Planning Department has accepted this request and is presenting it today, no process exists for an opt-out. In fact, opt-outs themselves aren't recognized by the code. So when we refer to an opt-out, it's a nickname for an area where commercial cannabis cultivation is prohibited. And the opt-out does only apply to cultivation as this prohibition is located within the cultivation code, not for non-storefront, nursery, retail, other uses. So it's just strictly cultivation. However, most of those other commercial cannabis uses either require a director's use permit, certain zonings, in certain zonings, or a conditional use permit. So, and they also usually accompany cultivation, or very often accompany cultivation, so it's unlikely. There's going to be other commercial uses introduced in the area. However, just wanted to definitely point out and make it clear that the opt-out only applies to cultivation. Again, in the current code 17.43, no process exists for opt-outs. That is where the similarity to the Rush Creek process comes into play. We received a petition, majority of property owners, maps, and supporting information. And this is what has been done in the past. So based on past precedents, that is how we're presenting this item to you today. We do hope in the future, with future amendments to our commercial cannabis ordinances, there will be a process presented, but at this time, this is the path forward. Also, I want to point out that at this time, the Planning Department is not currently accepting new applications or issuing new licenses under the interim urgency ordinance. And part of the concern expressed, which I'm sure will be expressed by those present here today who are proponents of the opt-out, is that properties are being purchased for the purpose of commercial cultivation, and that may be misleading to folks purchasing the properties without an opt-out in place. So opt-out or prohibition of commercial cannabis would be a clear message to folks to not buy or purchase property in the for future cultivation or obtaining a license in the future. But that is, again, we're not accepting new licenses nor issuing new licenses currently under the urgency ordinance. Based on the precedents set and the majority of property owners, staff is recommending that the board consider approving the Lewiston expansion opt-out. However, staff does not recommend approval with a 3-year sunset clause. That is something that is more appropriate for an ordinance amendment, and when a path is established by code and approved for creating opt-outs areas. That is something that sunset clause where in 3 years existing cannabis cultivation sites that are licensed would have to shut down and relocate. That creates its own impacts and deserves further analysis and evaluation. So that is why staff feels that that is something that needs to be part of a public process later on, is not appropriate for urgency ordinance, and does not recommend approving the 3-year sunset clause. And I think with that, I may have missed something, but please let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I'll try to answer those to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Any technical questions from the board? Please go ahead.
Kim, you said no transfers, but my understanding there's a transfer that's in process right now. What's your view on the transfer that's in process?
There's probably more than one transfer in process, honestly, but the transfer that is in process, there's one that's been completed. I'm not sure, but yeah, that definitely makes things very difficult right now.
So would your recommendation to be to complete those transfers that have paid and done their applications and move through?
Yes, definitely.
All right.
I feel that's only fair to those folks who move forward in good faith. And honestly, those transfers probably came in months ago and have just been held up by staff not being available to review them. And I am working on those.
And how many legal cannabis, licensed cannabis grows are in this? So,
I am aware of 3
okay.
in the
So
area.
there couldn't be more than 3 transfers then?
No, but there may be more in the larger area. There's 3 I am aware of, and I apologize not having those numbers.
All right, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? And then we'll go into public comment. And is there anybody on Zoom?
I don't have any raised hands. Oh, spoke too soon. All right, Matthew Jefferson.
My name is Matthew Jefferson. I am a legal cultivator in Coffee Creek. I guess we're here again to talk about opt-outs. I know I don't live in that area, but this is a threat to me, so I want to point out some facts. Opt-out zones mean opting into nothing but unregulated farms. Criminalizing cannabis will not fix these voiced issues. The reason this ordinance was written and implemented was to put standards and laws in place to fix these concerns. Concerns being water quality, water quantity, safety, odor, traffic, and cumulative impacts. All of these problems can be solved and assessed through regulation. Water quality is assessed through the water board. They assess our fertilizer usage and runoff to protect our watersheds. Water quantity, again, water board, forbearance periods, groundwater wells. Safety, regulation is eliminating the cash-based business aspect and gives us a safe legal marketplace. Odor, we have mitigation measures in the law to assess smell. And the fact is, farms smell, goat farms smell, chicken farms smell, orchid farms smell, lily farms smell. Cumulative impacts, my biologist has been telling me that my farm has had nothing but super positive impacts to the environment. And regulation keeps all the farmers aligned with the 4 principles of this program, which is what this is all about. The fact is, if grown properly, cannabis can be very beneficial to our environment. These are very vague concerns coming from a point of fear and bigotry, fueled and created through misinformation, lies, and an uninformed mindset. Obviously, none of these folks have read the laws for the state, county, water board, and Department of Fish and Wildlife, or they would understand their concerns would be alleviated through regulation. Any kind of sunset clause put on law-abiding citizens is a travesty, should not be considered. Saying every cannabis cultivator is the same, that sounds like bigotry. Blanketly making opt-out areas is very discriminatory. Once again, we're saying we're all the same, that we're bad people, and that we should leave. Any problem farm in the county should be handled on a case-by-case basis. Any farm in good standing that follows all laws and regulations should be praised and not threatened to leave. This is bigotry and hate of the unknown. I've had a small group of people in Trinity Center try to tell me to leave. Everyone's going to hate me for growing legal cannabis. That's false. The majority stands with me. This is bigotry in its truest form. We will not be scared away. This is the same tactic that they use to get black people out of white privileged neighborhoods. I speak today against bigotry and hate and hope that you see that this conflict is over. We are legal farmers and we have the right to exist. Thank you. I have more to say, but I don't have more time. So anyways, have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Rhoda Kane.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Rhoda Kane, and same thing, here we are again. This is the same vague, misinformed, fear-based propaganda used in the 60s to keep black families out of nice white neighborhoods right now. Please don't allow fear and it as their entire life they do, and then some coming into compliance. Please don't prevent future generations from earning a living on their own land the way they see fit. Please be leaders. The community needs you to be and stay on the side of science and education. A sunset clause on grandfathered properties, I have no words to describe how horrified I feel with the idea that people think our county leaders might be willing to even consider such a thing. And please offer us some modicum of reassurance. I'd like to thank Kim for her acknowledgement of this, as I. If more than half of Weaverville they were tired of the smell and all huge traffic trucks associated with the lumber company, would you supervisors know this? I think maybe instead we should be helping their confused constituents understand the truth about water roads and fertilizer use as well as crime. I don't know what a compliant cannabis farm is. If you don't know what a compliant cannabis farm looks like or how it works, maybe you should tour one so that you can be better informed. We're pretty easy to find. Any of the board members are more than welcome to come to our place and have a look and learn about it. And then maybe help to preserve Trinity County's historical legacy as a member of the Emerald Triangle. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Daniel Cucci.
Thank you, board. My name is Daniel Cucci. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I am an attorney with the law firm of Abbott and Kinderman and represent the Santos project, which is located within this district area. I want to point out three things. I sent you a letter just sort of reiterating. First, this urgency ordinance appears to be defective. There's no current and imminent threat finding that I could find anywhere in that ordinance, which is required under Government Code Section 65858. And so that would need to be corrected. I think one reason why it may not be included is because there actually isn't any current and imminent threat. As Ms. Hunter noted, no new licenses can be issued or approved right now, so there is no imminent threat of new operations. I do, third, want to point out that the issue of transfers, of course, perhaps could raise issues about a potential imminent threat. The question, however, is that transfers actually, they describe multiple types of things, and I think this section, if it were to be considered by the board, is a bit overbroad. Transfers include not only the transfer from one location to another by the same owner, but also the transfers of a license at the same location to a new owner, so it doesn't move. And the distinction is, of course, any new license that is brought in via a transfer, could arguably support current imminent threat. But any transfer of a sale to a new owner of a license on the exact location that was already approved fails to provide any imminent harm, precisely because renewals are still allowed. There is no possible distinction between a renewal and a transfer of a license to a new owner operating on the exact same location. The impacts would be exactly the same. And so that too would fail. So to the extent that there is concern about transfers from outside Lewiston being brought in, that's understandable. But there is no current imminent threat from the issuance of new licenses, and there is really no harm that can be shown for transfers to new owners at the exact same location. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Anybody else on Zoom?
Yes, Rick Letweiler?
Hi, thank you. I find it interesting the position that people are taking in opposition to this, referring to us being confused, uninformed, ignorant, bigots, moving with hate. It's interesting, but of course it's all incorrect. We are very informed. We're informed by having studied the laws. We're informed by having to hire attorneys to fight against the attorneys funded by growers. And we have been informed by the experience of having grows, illegal and otherwise, in our communities. And it's interesting for people to say that, well, if you're voting to opt out for commercial, then you must be wanting the illegal. And it's not an either or. If we don't allow the legal growing in our neighborhoods, and we enforce that illegal grows can't be there either, then the problem is gone. It's not an either or. So I think the mischaracterization that's being put forward is unfortunate, but I guess desperate times, desperate measures. We believe in commercial cannabis. We also believe that in our community, that is 20 square miles out of 3,200 plus square miles in the county, and represents 10% of the population of the county, is not the place for commercial cannabis grows. There are plenty of places where those grows can take place and not affect the lives and the investments of time and energy and family and money and everything else in our communities. The process that we have followed is the same process that was used for previous efforts that were approved. So arguments about that this isn't right because it isn't this or it isn't that, and threats and so forth, we followed exactly the same process. We came through with a vast majority. We provided maps that showed exactly how strong the support was throughout the area that we're addressing. And the bottom line is, this is a community that has suffered from legal and illegal grows. When people say, oh, the legal grows are fine and you won't have any problems, well, tell that to the people that want to be at the winery, but they can't because it stinks so bad. Tell the people that don't want to be there because visually it's so unattractive. There are very real impacts that have happened and continue to happen to us, and we're looking for your support. Clearly, the majority of the residents in this community do not want it, and they have the right, as others have had, to request and get this opt-out. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Patrick?
Hello?
Yep, go ahead, Patrick.
Thank you very much. I want to address the reason of this meeting, basically, which are the complaints of some residents addressing the order. So the claim for orders is not substantiated by any report that I've seen. It's very easy for the plaintiffs to come, documents with vapor meters, with the olfactometry, with particle analysis. We have seen no report of any impact from odors coming from the cultivation. The second point is the baseless traffic claims. Where are the traffic data? It's very easy to have the traffic data as well. You know very well that you have data on the road. Where is that traffic coming from? What is the change coming due specifically to the cannabis industry? That's also another baseless, groundless claim, has nothing to do with reality. The third one is the criminal activities and endangering the community. That's also completely baseless. The documentation that I've seen to support this meeting calls for illegal activities, which were called, and another one coming in Colorado. So it really has nothing to do with existing claims of crime. Then the danger on the water table, the pollution. You know very well that every legal operation is extremely controlled with CQA, with the fish and game, everything is done, and it is strictly forbidden to use any pesticides. So that's another fantasy, another excuse, which has nothing to do with reality. The most concerning aspect that I have is for the claim to have a sunset over 3 years, basically wiping off hundreds of millions of dollars, probably, from people who have invested in the Western. So my question to you is, how are you going to be indemnified what is perceived and what will be an eminent domain condemnation if you're following this road? Does the county have the resource to indemnify all those people? That's the question that I have. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your comments.
Can I get your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Patrick Bertranou, B-E-R-T-R-A-N-O-U, and I'm speaking on behalf of my son, who has a legal, permitted cannabis cultivation in the Lewiston area. There is no smell, there is no trouble.
Thank you.
Complying. Thank you.
Adrian Keys.
Hey, thank you. Adrian Keys from Hayfork. Yeah, as far as the urgency of this goes, I mean, I understand how the other ordinances, the urgency ordinances came to pass, but presently there really isn't an opportunity for new permit application or approval underneath the existing cultivation urgency ordinance. So it seems like, and this is probably going to happen anyway, but extending the urgency ordinance, actually the cultivation urgency ordinance satisfies the continued protection for the neighborhood, and it also will give time ultimately for the transition plan to be implemented. And my hope would be that during that process, we can solve some of these kind of core conflicts that keep happening that are obviously, there are some issues that need to be dealt with in the ordinance. And the patchwork of opt-outs and their extensions are really not providing a consistent land use policy for potential permittees, nor are they reliable protections for the concentric neighborhoods. And I mean, the biggest one to me, because that's a land use thing, we got to settle that out in ordinance. But the idea of a forced relocation should just be entirely dismissed, that permitted existing businesses invested in their infrastructure and environmental compliance being forced to relocate or just creates an insurmountable financial burden through devaluing their real estate, replacement and relocation of existing infrastructure, and the cost of environmental compliance. Relocation would likely or may cause further impacts that would then need to be mitigated, and a wholesale relocation of a new parcel would trigger a time-consuming environmental review process during which the permittee may not be able to operate. The seasonal nature of some types of surveys and site development could potentially prevent an operation for several years. I mean, you got to do a biological resource assessment in the spring. You got to do a lake and stream bed agreement. Sometimes DFW takes 2 years to get you signed up. And then you need to do your site development, and then you can operate. So that's a long time. This type of policy also has triggered price gouging in Humboldt County. They've had issues with their RRR program around a secondary market for permits and the loss of individually owned businesses. And that's not a good plan for stability. The county intends to compensate the people getting relocated in some ways. More canopy would require an addendum to the EIR, and I certainly wouldn't want to see the broad program participants having to pay for that. Please deny this urgency ordinance, extend the existing UO, and institute a functional transition plan. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
There is no more comments on Zoom at this point in time. We can go to comments within the room.
All right. No comments, next. You guys gonna make comments? I was just joking, I'm sorry.
Is that where I get up and speak? Or?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry.
And when you get there, just
I'm a little rusty.
State your name and location of residence.
Sam Brinkley, Lewiston. I'm here today to speak against this. I would like to let y'all know that I don't think there's another person in this county who's a better friend to Grass Valley Creek than me. I'm the one that developed the 2 farms on Coffin. And if you knew anything about that property, you would know that it has a 165 million gallon pre-1914 water right. It has a creek that's diverted from Grass Valley Creek through a water pipe running across a suspension bridge that was put in place by Fish and Game. Before it was required, years before it was required, when I bought this property, I said, well, where's 165 million gallons at the head of Grass Valley Creek going to water grass? This just is, I know that, 200 Coffin was built around it. We cut that off. We stopped that. We diverted that water back to the creek and killed several 100-plus-year-old apple trees. But I just felt like it was a complete waste of water, and so I just find the irony of Friends of Grass Valley Creek. And these people know who I am. I came to Katie Quinn's party and said, Katie, I understand you're against marijuana. I'd like to change your idea, at least for us. Here's the gate code to my farm. Come anytime you want. Let me tell you about what we do for Grass Valley Creek that we're not required to do. I don't know anybody else in this county giving up their water rights. And the response I got was she called my lender to see if I was a resident to backdoor me out of my license, because back then you had to be a resident. That's what she did. She didn't tell any of these people about the water we give back to Grass Valley Creek. And I find another irony is the lady that wrote this, right here, Crystal, who is a sweet lady. She tried to sell me her farm. $1.5 million, $600,000 down, $900,000 over 2 years. Was even going to assist me in buying the property behind her. He and her husband took a tape measure and measured where the greenhouses would go. Yet, I didn't buy it over concerns that they haven't kept up with their water rights, they haven't reported their insecticide sprays. I told her, go get a license yourself, and if you can get one, we'd be interested in buying it. But with what we're finding out, it wasn't a deal. So now I have the lady who was perfectly fine with selling me the vineyard, and we were going to take the top section of grapes in front of the house, we were going to pull that down and put greenhouses right there. We were going to keep the bottom, it was a separate property. He even tells me that he talked to you, Mr. Groves, about doing it, and you were okay with it. So it's just strange to me that now this group wants to shut down people that are heavily involved. I mean, Eduardo's got $5 million in that farm. You don't want to just tell him he can grow weed for 3 years and then tough luck? I mean, this is the kind of stuff that keeps people up at night. It doesn't make them feel secure. We do good things in this community. I've raised $30,000 in the past 2 years for this community. 22 bicycles for the women's shelter, $18,000 to the police dogs, $3,000 to the Little League field. My time's up. I could say a lot more, but I guess I'll just let somebody else speak.
Thanks for your comments.
So my name's Eddie Fernandez, and I own 310 Coffin Road. So yeah, I've been here since 2016 and was one of the original county permits that I got from Sam. And I've had Fish and Wildlife at my property. I've had CDFA, the county. I've never had any complaints or compliance issues. I'm very serious about being compliant and taking care of the environment. We don't divert any water for cannabis use. I've never diverted water for cannabis use. I have my own private wells that I drill on that property for cannabis use. So I don't use any water from the creek. I don't go near the creek. We don't fish in the creek. I'm not a hunter. I'm not a fisherman. I'm very well aware of the environment and want to help the environment. So I put $5 million into this farm, and I also own my own brand that's actually called Trinity Reserve. We're in 100 stores. I have my own distribution in Reading, and I'm very proud of that because my wife and I did it organically on our own. We've never gotten any money from anyone, and to think that my business is at risk for concerns that I've never heard for 5 years that I've been here, raised, on the 24th hour, it just makes no sense to me. And, I'm very nervous and scared about this, and I've never had any issues with you guys or CDFA. They tell me I'm one of the most compliant farms ever. I just had Fish and Wildlife come to my property and tell me they want to renew my LSA agreement for 5 more years because we've been such good actors in cannabis. So, I've never had the pleasure of meeting the winery and being able to help them address any concerns. My gates are open to anyone here or anyone in the county, including all the fine folks, to come anytime you want. We have nothing to hide. We're a legal business like anyone else, and we put our heart into it and all our money into it. And, it would just be a shame to see all this go away, all this progress. And another thing, I probably pay well over $1 million to California. I pay about $300,000 every 3 months in taxes due to my brand, because CDFA charges you quarterly for the taxes for packaging and distributing cannabis. And our customers are medical patients, and they really love our product. They say it's some of the best and cheapest in the state. Like I said, we're in over 100 stores, and we've done it grassroots, and they're very thankful for us coming from Trinity and giving them some really awesome sun-grown products that are very affordable. I don't know what else to say. I'm just kind of hurt that we would consider, getting rid of people like me that have been as compliant as possible. And I've never had any issues with anyone. I didn't even know about any of this till a few days ago. I guess my time is up, but I invite anyone here to come to my farm anytime. So,
Thanks for your comments.
thanks.
Hi everybody, my name is Natalie. My husband Patrick and I have a small family-run business on Coffin Road. We live and work there on the farm, and we find this ordinance to be very unfair, and we don't agree with it. This is our livelihood, and we feel like we're being picked out because of the stigma against cannabis. And the complaints being made, I feel a lot of them are about the issues that the illegal cannabis operations are doing, and I just don't understand why us permitted farms are being targeted. And respectfully to the vineyards next to the creek, they're not really being, their environmental impacts aren't being looked at. The safety issue of, people going on for tastings and then driving away, that's not really being talked about. Our farm is totally compliant. We follow all fish and wildlife regulations. We use organic products. We cover our greenhouses at night on time without light leaks. And our processing, we don't actually have trimmers because of the way we process. Everything's done in-house. And so that's, we're a low traffic farm. We realize this is a privilege, and we want to do everything we can to, be compliant and be as respectful as we can to the community. And we're open to all suggestions on how we can improve. And also like to take this time to request that our transfer be pushed through because it's already been submitted and paid for. And I hope we can all like come together and figure this out. And thank you for your time.
Thanks for your comments.
Can I get your full name for the record?
Natalie Kohler.
Thank you.
This is your moment for public comment. If you guys are going to take any, please do it now. Otherwise, I'm going to close it down. Yeah, go ahead. You don't need to get my approval.
Hello, my name is Heidi Miller. Live on, oh, 1 second, I need my glasses. Sorry. Okay, sorry about that. My name is Heidi Miller. I live on 70 Benvenuto Way. And my family and I are in support of this urgent ordinance of Lewiston opt-out expansion. It is lucid by the petition submitted that the support of this urgency ordinance is logical and reasonable. We've been told to get used to it. It's not about that. It's not about getting used to it. We have stated many times that we are not opposed to growing cannabis. It is just not at the year-round industrial capacity that it has been allowed in this neighborhood. To say to get used to it is not bringing balance to an obvious complication that all parties are in right now. The ordinance that is in place now clearly got out of hand. It's time to take pause. It's simple, really. The vastness of what is being allowed is just plain not okay. It's not okay in this residential area. It's not okay to have glowing lights on as bright as the sun light up a whole hillside at night. It's not okay to have odors so pungent that our homes and our vehicles smell of the odor, and that it's so strong that we are getting headaches. It's not okay to have the vibration and the sound of the fans so loud that we have to close our windows. It's not okay that the sounds of the fans are so loud that you can no longer hear the Grass Valley Creek. And then you cannot ignore the fear factor of the safety concerns. To not support this opt-out is a shameful failure of one's obligation to protect the voices of the people of this community. The Miller family, again, is in support of growing cannabis. It's all about bringing people together and finding that balance, but this is just too big, too vast, and not in the neighborhood that our community is in. So we hope that the family today, or our Miller family today, is in hope that the board will take action in favor of this urgency ordinance. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Anybody else here from within the library or whatever, the chamber? All right, next comments?
May I speak to this? Okay, perfect. On our right, Weaverville. I fail to see the urgency in this urgency ordinance. We had a final EIR passed and certified at the end of December that kept rural residential as part of the applicable zoning. That EIR also included like 60 or so CEQA mitigations to address noise, smell. I mean, there's 18 different factors of CEQA. To have a final EIR that addresses all of these concerns means that this ordinance is not urgent. What is urgent would be the transition plan, to which I don't see agendized for extending of the urgency ordinance currently in effect because of that. The transition plan, as the county keeps talking about, will provide the framework of how to review under these CEQA mitigations that have been approved and certified by the Board of Supervisors. So the real urgency that I see is actually keeping small businesses in place, accepting their tax revenue, and starting to review applications under our new CEQA FEIR ordinance. That is the real urgency. I ask all of you to please do not vote on this today. Comments against rural residential inapplicable zoning should have been had during the EIR process. There was like 2 years of that for people to comment. Valid findings would also be required for this urgency ordinance to be able to be passed. And the fact that staff was directed to work on this and not the transition plan is disgusting. It's another slap in the face to the farmers that we're not here to support the only industry that's about to bring us tax revenue. I don't know how many times people like myself have to get up here and show you the disregard and the gross negligence of supporting the only industry we have. So please understand that there is no urgency here. The urgency is placed in the FEIR framework being created to review all of these renewal extensions, of extending the current urgency ordinance so farmers are not put out of place in September. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Additional public comment?
Nancy Anderson of Lewiston. I'm going to probably just speak on behalf of all of us that I believe that the reason for allowing opt-outs is to adjust what may have been misguided in the original planning and implementing of commercial cannabis in Trinity County. Because I think the impact is greatest in our neighborhood because the denseness of our parcel size and what the impact of a commercial grow of the size that's allowed that close to another residence, or it was bad planning, and I wasn't around when all the plans were made, but it just doesn't seem like the zoning was taken into consideration, because cannabis isn't like growing corn or wheat. It's more like other types of agriculture that I know are monitored closely. Hog farms, cattle farms, they have a huge impact, even though they're not doing anything wrong by raising those animals or those crops. They do have a physical, chemical impact on the people that have to live in that area. And so that's why I believe that the opt-out is a way of correcting what may not have been considered in the original planning of this, implementing of this ordinance that the county now has. I agree with the last speaker that energy should maybe be put into how to transition this all better, but I don't think it should be set aside, the wishes of the majority of the community members that live in this area that's being considered. The majority of owners and renters have spoken. We have the support in the numbers of people that are being affected, and it's not a prejudicial thing. It's simply a logistic thing of we're just all living a lot closer together in our community, even though it's 2.5 acres. It's still close enough to see and smell and hear the impacts. So that's why we, as a community, are speaking on behalf of, the impact is having a greater effect on us than it would in an area where there were larger parcels, larger farms. I appreciate the invite, though. I do really want to find out what you guys are doing. I have alpacas and I have manure that may help you. I like the idea that you've invited us, and I appreciate that. I'll take you up on it.
We've invited y'all years ago. Maybe I was speaking to the wrong person on the case plans, but we invited y'all years ago.
Yeah, I've only been here a couple years, so I will take you up on it. Thank you.
Additional public comment? Are you good? That was your consolidated voice.
Come on, Sophia.
Need AC on in here, guys. Chair, Supervisors, good afternoon now. Lisa Wright, Lewiston. So, I had a mask on that had social justice warrior, social injustice warrior, and social injustice. What was it? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bruce Lee. And I got it with a t-shirt I bought for a friend that had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with Bruce Lee, and it said, "Talk to someone that doesn't look like you today." And I think that comes down to really kind of the heart of some of this. I'm certainly disappointed that staff was redirected to work on an urgency ordinance of this nature. We have an urgency ordinance in place that prohibits new applications at this time until a CEQA process is developed. There's really no findings of fact. I don't see anything urgent. I keep hearing about the impacts, and that there's no finding of fact in this document. And on top of that, I see reference to industrial hemp in a couple of places. So are we talking about commercial cannabis or industrial hemp? Because the urgency ordinance has that discrepancy. Maybe that needs to be vetted a little bit better. You can't put a stop to transfers of licenses in an area. That's a government take. That's not legal to do. And so to even be considering this in an urgency ordinance makes no sense whatsoever. It's really just the stage to try to drive out the industry. Let's take a look at this area actually that's proposed for the urgency ordinance. Encompassed within rural residential is approximately, 11, 12 acres of grapes for wine production. Now, last time I checked, that is commercial agriculture, not rural residences. To make matters worse, approximately 2 acres of that vineyard is in the 100-year FEMA floodplain. And the grapes are being planted right up against, near the bank of the Grass Valley Creek. So friends of Grass Valley, I would be concerned about that and the impact it's having on the water quality as well as the aquatic life of that area. There's no regulation on what can be sprayed in the plants, and I checked with the Ag Commissioner, there's been no report in the last 2 years. This proximity to Grass Valley Creek is extremely concerning. That's what I feel is probably more urgent, and that is the operation of this vineyard in the 100-year floodplain. No regulation on the pesticides. Cannabis farms, 150-foot setback from a class 1. Period. No exceptions to that. Fish and wildlife agreements in place. All of those farms have that for statements of diversion, small domestic use or small irrigation use registrations, and they have their own source of water separate from that. They're all legal. Go and look up the water rights for this area. You're not going to find very many. I would urge Friends of Grass Valley Creek to actually work with their neighbors to make sure they're properly registered with statements of diversion. Christy is here with Environmental Health. If there's a well that's less than 100 feet, it needs a statement of diversion. I urge you to vote no on this urgency ordinance. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Hi, my name is Lori Wills, and I do live in this community, and I'm a resident of Lewiston, obviously, and a member of Grass Valley Creek. And first of all, I want to thank everybody for getting this matter on the agenda for us. We really do appreciate it. We've been working on it for about a year now, so it's not something that just happened overnight. It's been a very long process for us to get here today. A couple of comments. I did provide a letter that did go into detail about some of the reasons why this is an urgent matter to our community. There have been complaints against these 3 licensed farms. There has been code enforcement actions against illegal farms. There is an issue with one of the licenses that has been in the process of being transferred. That particular license has been under appeal for almost a year. There are a lot of criminal concerns at that particular farm. The original owner of that farm just last week was sentenced to 19 years in prison for actions that he and another employee at that farm did, both blowing up a honey lab oil in another county, going to Colorado and tracking down former employees who stole their crops, beating the crap out of them and their families, threatening their lives of their families, and armed robberies. So they're serious crimes. And that same farmer threatened some of our residents. So these are serious issues. maybe not particular to these two, but, you know, on Coffin Road, but there are serious issues in this neighborhood. And I don't think they can be ignored. And as far as the sunset clause, we know that's a big ask. And we really do. And we appreciate your consideration on that. But we're not the ones who came up with that idea. That has been discussed at the board level since last year. And in fact, I don't mean to call out Dr. Coons, but he presented it to the board in a staff update suggesting that the county come up with a long-term plan to help relocate these farms out of these residential areas. So it's not something we're doing because we're accused of being bigots. It's something the county's already contemplating. So my time's up. I appreciate your consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments.
Good afternoon, Crystal Bell, obviously One Maple Winery. You know, I came here today, as we've been, you guys know us, we've been in appeals. We've been working this for a long time, and thank you, Kim, for all your help in helping us get things together. She's never taken a side, by the way. I don't want to make that assumption here. And so we just came here because we know that you guys know this is an issue. It has been for us, and we're just asking for your assistance in helping us. It evidently is turning into, let's try to, you know, take down One Maple in some way. I'd like to thank Mr. Brinkley for bringing up the fact that he wanted to purchase our winery. That's true. I don't think there's anyone here that doesn't know that, but it didn't happen. And we couldn't foresee what was going to happen from that point on, but it did become a situation where it is overwhelming, and there are properties being sold that with the hopes of doing the same thing. So that's why we're here. We're here to, it's not a fault of anyone. All of that doesn't matter. We want to work together. We want to talk with our people. I will tell you though, being standing outside when I walked up to speak on this issue with the opposition, I was basically threatened that they were going to be exposing me, meaning about selling the winery. You know, and that's kind of the things that we're worried about. I mean, I know they talk about the diversion and water quality control board with One Maple, and you know, I know they tried to turn us in, and we had to get that corrected. There's no problems there. You know, so those are the things they're trying to work together. So please, for the benefit of the community that has obviously stood up, when we finally had the opportunity to do so, because we didn't have that opportunity when these licenses were originally approved. There wasn't anything in place that let us come in and appeal the approvals. They happened kind of, you know, during the night, so to speak. And we've been, you know, we've talked to some of the people. There's no animosity there, but we just need this to get corrected where we know that our area is free from these types of situations that Lori had spoke of. And, you know, we've been there for a long time too, so we do have rights, and we have money in our property as well. And I think sometimes people tend to forget that a business that's been there for 25 years has had a lot of money into their property, not just the gross. So we appreciate your consideration, and we hope that you do listen and approve this opt-out. Thank you.
Afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Tom Belenko, Douglas City. As I think probably all of you know, I'm generally in favor of the concept of opt-out areas. Not like it was my idea, but I helped put the original ones into place because it made sense. That said, that was 5 years ago. I think by now we've seen some shifts. Number one, we have an EIR that addresses a lot of the concerns about what are the actual impacts? And we have 60 some odd mitigation measures to address those things. Some of the things I've already heard, lights at night. That's not, there's regs against that. You can call up not only county regulations, there's state regulations against that. We have a decibel level, so if bands are exceeding that, we have rules in place for that. Were we not literally on the cusp of our general plan update, I might feel differently about this because I do think communities have a right to dictate their land use. At the same time, people who are property owners have a vested interest in knowing what the capabilities of their zoning are. And for years, we have told people, this is not now. This is a fine place to buy, invest your money, and produce and grow here. So they're here, not a lot of them. So I don't think this urgency ordinance is A, urgent, or B, appropriate given the circumstances that have happened since we first constructed this program. I think, Lewiston is a flashpoint for parents, no question about that. I think that is best addressed at the general plan scoping meetings. So I'd urge you to vote no. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Final comments.
Hi there. My name is Patrick McNamara. My wife Natalie and I own the property on Coffin Road. We don't agree with this at all, and would like to know who would be reimbursing us the $1.9 million we spent on the property if this were to go through, because the property would be worth nothing if it can't transfer the license or if it can only go for 3 years.
Thanks for your comments. All right, it looks like that's it for public comment.
Two more on Zoom. I have Judy Nelson.
Hi there, thank you for your time. I want to speak my name is Judy Nelson. I'm a resident of Salyer, and I want to speak in support of the farmers who received their permits in this area prior to the establishment of the opt-out area. I think that neighbor disputes happen all the time. You have good neighbors, you have bad neighbors. Bad neighbors are not always cannabis growers. And it's important to remember that the county doesn't usually get involved in neighbor disputes in this way. I think that if you imagine yourself in those farmers' shoes and you bought a piece of property, you went through all of the work to get a permit, you have a legal permitted business on your property that the county approved, you're following all the laws, all the regulations that are established by the county and the state, but your neighbor doesn't like what you're doing and is somehow able to make it so that you would have to cease your operations and move your business, right? I can't think of very many other industries or times that something like this would actually happen. And so if you remove it out of that cannabis context, think about how unusual that situation would be, right? And I think that there is that real concern of the county becoming liable for having to reimburse people for work they've done or value of their property. I think that the neighbors who don't like that activity that's taking place, what responsibility do they have, right? They want to make the cannabis operators move, but they also could move. And so it's just important to remember that these people went through the process and received their permit. And as long as they are staying compliant, they should be able to keep their permit, right? So please do not approve this ordinance and allow these people to stay in business on their own private property. Trinity County has traditionally been very in support of private property rights, and I hope that that continues to be true. And I also would like to urge you to make the transition plan the highest priority, because that is what is going to help us move forward into the future. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for your comments.
Patrick, you already spoke, so unfortunately I can't let you speak again. So we're going to go to Sue Lettweiler.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to try to be very brief. This is Sue Lettweiler. It's been very effective to hear everybody speaking, and one of the things I think I would like to emphasize is that our primary goal in trying to put forth this ordinance, whether we call it urgency or not, is that we have an overwhelming majority of parcel owners in this area that we're asking to extend the opt-out who don't want to see any more commercial cannabis grows going in. And I think, as my husband pointed out earlier, we're a pretty small chunk out of all of Trinity County. So there's lots of other places in Trinity County that would be more suitable for these types of grows. I know we've had many different discussions along the way. Like somebody said, we've been working on this for almost a year now. And many discussions along the way of what what our primary goal would be to this. And I think setting aside the sunset clause stuff that everybody's talking about and asking owners to try to find other, who are currently legal and active, to find other properties, more suitable. I have to say, personally, I'm not such a big fan of that either. They've got a lot invested in their properties, but we would certainly like to have the Board of Supervisors support for not allowing any new grows to take place. And part of the urgency is we don't want to give the false impression to potential growers who would like to grow that this area is open to that, in terms of the overwhelming number of residents that we have who are voting, who are petitioning against it. This kind of shows you that our preference really truly is to not have them in our neighborhoods, right next door to us, with all of the known negative impacts that everybody is fully aware of, and even the county is aware of. So if nothing else, we're hoping that we can at least put out the message through an ordinance of this type that please don't try to come here and throw up commercial grows all over the place in Lewiston. We just don't want it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Charles?
Oh, hi everybody. My name is Charles Bergman from Lewiston. I couldn't help but to notice that this just seemed like a very racially charged proceeding. It seems like you guys may as well just replace the word growers with minorities. Couldn't help but notice that much of the plaintiffs were all Caucasian, and many of the growers that I've seen are minorities, from the people that I've met as well. I just can't help but notice that this seems like a racially targeted move. It's very sad. A lot of income will be lost. A lot of capital has been invested. All these growers, these farms employ a large amount of people, support families. Looks like you guys are just trying to push a certain demographic of people out. So yeah, I just hope that's not the case. There will be a huge loss of investment, loss of income, and I just don't know who's going to be paying for that. So if we could get an answer to these questions, that'd be very helpful. The property values, someone was complaining about that decreasing. I just, if there's any evidence of that, I think it's actually the opposite going on. So all these complaints just need to be supported by concrete evidence. So that's all I'm saying. So thank you guys for your time.
Thanks for your comments.
I have no other raised hands and no new comments.
Is there any final comment from the library hallway area? All right. That wraps up public comment. Which brings it back to the board.
So I would like to make one comment that had to do with the last speaker and a couple other ones. As a board member, and speak for probably all of us here, there is no race bias in what's going on here. I don't understand that at all. I didn't even notice what nationality you were when you got up there. You know, we're up here to do a job no matter where you're from, what you look like. A few people brought that up, and I just, bad subject. We're not that way. I'm not, I don't think my fellow board members are. So if you think there is any racial bias up here, I'm probably here to say it's not.
Further discussion from the board? Any questions for anyone? Technical questions? Supervisor Groves, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. When we get to comment periods, I'll
Okay.
run the same.
Supervisor Cox, do you have any questions? All right. This side, any questions?
Kim, has there been any complaints on the 2 or 3 legal growers in that opt-out area? And if there has been, what were they?
Yes, there had been some complaints regarding grading and lights being on. In one case, the grading was for a structure, was not any ground disturbance that triggered a grading permit. In other cases, the lights, there was light being seen that actually wasn't in the greenhouse, it was on the greenhouse. We did go check those out. There have been further light complaints about lights being on. That's always a tough violation to observe as staff. You don't know when they're going to be on. We did receive those complaints. We did not confirm, staff did not confirm, nor was a notice of non-compliance issued for the farms on Coffin. There's 2 there and 1 application pending. Also did want to clarify, if I may, that the crimes that were referenced were a former owner on one of the sites in the area. It's a former owner, not the current owner. A transfer has been completed on that site. But there was problems in the past and definitely things that happened that weren't on the site, but that was a former owner and not the current owner. That was mentioned. If you have any, just wanted to clarify that. Anything else?
No, I think we're all aware it was the former owner to the stop sign issue we went through.
Yeah, this is the Dos Santos site.
So I guess I would have a question to the public. Is there many illegal grows you think in the area besides the 3 or 4 legal grows that you're seeing there?
Public comments closed.
Okay, don't say a word.
If I may, Supervisor Gogan, there have been legal grows noted that illegal grows noted near legal sites, not connected, and we found no connection to the legal sites, but kind of using those, so to speak, as camouflage. It's hard to tell parcel lines when you're out in the field.
Any additional questions from the board?
I would have a question probably for County Council and whether Council believes that we do have a current and imminent threat to address with this ordinance.
So that's a decision that you will have to make as a board. The language is in the ordinance that does reference those health, safety, and welfare threat. So what we request is that as part of your motion, you would make findings as to what those are. The ordinance is written in such a way that does state there is an imminent threat.
So the board has to come up with findings that would be presented by the ordinance itself?
So you would have to make those determinations. During the staff report, Director Hunter did reference them, so you can just incorporate her staff report as part of your findings. But again, it's health, safety, and welfare threats are referenced in the ordinance. In addition, there's a section that does talk about the urgency aspect to it that has the appropriate language that gives the discretion to move forward. But again, if you'd like to add anything further or make modifications in terms of what you believe the imminent threat is, you're welcome to do so.
Thank you.
And I think one of the imminent threats, which I think is very valuable to realize, is that many of the unlicensed parcels are being advertised for sale as cannabis parcels. And so trying to put a cool-off period on that, which is unfair for everybody involved. If you buy something thinking you're going to be able to develop it, and then later you run into a buzzsaw, I think it's very valid urgency in that alone. Because we will step up and have a mess later when there'll be 5 people saying, hey, I spent millions of dollars to buy this, and you won't be able to get a license. I guess since are we past questions?
No, we don't have a motion yet.
You are still welcome to ask questions of staff.
I guess, Margaret, my question would be the possibility of some of these parcels being sold to illegal growers that may or may not get a permit. Is that an imminent threat or more of a
separate issue?
Fire beware.
So the question is would having this, what Supervisor Grove stated is having folks advertising and selling property be an imminent threat. Again, we're looking at imminent threat to health, safety, and welfare. So I'll allow you to make the determination on that. I think the stronger arguments that were made, we did look at the proximity of houses to each other and the nature of the jurisdiction that this is being looked at.
This is a sensitive watershed, and cumulative impacts have not been looked at all to this date.
And that would be a strong argument as to health, safety, and welfare.
Kim, I have a question for you. There was a comment made, if I can find it quickly enough, and it was to do with the degree, I'll just try to remember. It was to do with the degree to which the Water Quality Board oversees what goes on with water quality and consumption and use and cumulative impacts and all of that. I've only sat on one North Coast Regional Water Quality Board committee meeting. But what was stated in that meeting and in the board backup data was that this is all self-declared, basically.
Self-regulating.
Is that the case?
Yes.
So nobody from the Water Quality Board ever comes out and looks at anything or tests anything or?
Actually, I have our environmental health director here who actually works with the water board closer than I do. You know, as far as I know, you know, yes, it's the self-certification process. So, Christy, do you mind coming up? And I believe you could answer that question very succinctly.
Since Christy Anderson, Trinity County Environmental Health Director, since October 2016 when Trinity County adopted the urgency ordinance to allow cannabis cultivation in Trinity County, I have seen the North Coast Water Quality Control Board twice during inspections, and that's upon request. I've requested them several times on many other inspections and have not seen their presence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Any motions?
I would make a motion to change the language in this, if possible, to not have the 3-year sunset clause. I would like to also take out the industrial hemp part of it.
It's just an error.
I think is in there. I don't know.
Yeah, I apologize. We were going to point that out prior to motion.
Okay.
Those should, instead of saying industrial hemp, should say commercial cannabis.
So to clarify the motion, you want me to try to clarify? Okay. Motion is to approve as presented, except for the removal of request 1, which is the 3-year sunset clause. And what about request 2? Is that?
No, that's kind of tough. I think we are in a probation period for licenses and renewals until the middle of December. Is that right? An emergency ordinance.
Where are you at, Chairman?
Well, I'm just trying to clarify for Liam.
Yeah, I mean, what are you reading off of?
I'm reading off of the staff report with the 2 requests from the opt-out folks. So it says the request submitted is similar to that of the Rush Creek opt-out, which was enacted, blah, 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 with 2 exceptions. Request 1, a 3-year sunset clause to be included for existing licensed cultivation sites, and request 2, request for prohibition on all commercial cannabis activities. Those are the 2 requests. There's responses from staff below it. So I was just trying to clarify from Supervisor Gogan if he's in support of those 2 requests or not.
I'm not in support of number 1. The 3-year sunset, I have a hard time with that. Prohibition on all commercial cannabis activities that are going on right now, legal or illegal. I have a problem with that also.
Well, I would actually have another question for staff on that request too, because the way I read that was that it would be a prohibition on all license types, and then when Kim did her presentation, she said it would only be for cultivation, so I would kind of...
Before we get to that question, we do have a motion on the table. We get a second for discussion or it withdrawn.
So can you state your motion one more time, please, Supervisor Gogan?
My motion is to not pass this because of the request for a 3-year sunset clause and the request for a prohibition of all commercial cannabis activities.
So it would be to deny.
It would be denied. As it reads.
We're looking for a second on that motion.
Sounds like nothing.
You're welcome to ask questions now.
Okay. So with that request too, Kim, can you give us some more insight into that? I'm not sure. I know that I read it different than Supervisor Gogan.
Okay, so the item being considered is the draft ordinance.
Okay.
And I do not see the sunset clause
Or
the all uses. So basically, in my staff report, I was addressing what was being requested and clarifying, how the opt-out would be applies, because that portion of code is in the cultivation ordinance for the uses, and I do not recommend the sunset clause for reasons already stated. But neither of those items is in the ordinance itself.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification.
With that, I would make a motion.
Go ahead.
I would accept as presented in the ordinance with one change, that we allow transfers of legal cannabis sites to be allowed in this process.
And, go ahead.
Second for discussion.
I would like some clarification on your motion. You say transfer of legal cannabis sites. Are you referring to licenses, transferring licenses but not moving the sites?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, they can transfer any way they choose to transfer a license, but to allow the sale of transfer within, I'm not making sense.
You're requesting that it allows for the transfer of legal cannabis licenses that are currently in the opt-out area. And that would be transfer not only for individuals purchasing the property within the opt-out area, but also transfer the property outside of the opt-out area.
Correct.
And where is the wording in here for existing cultivation, or does there not need to be any because they would be grandfathered in?
I believe it's in there, but hold one moment while I find it.
I didn't see it
I
in
believe it
there.
says new licenses, but let me double check that.
Yeah, it actually doesn't say it, it just
A
says
new and
you
transferred
can't, there will be no new licenses.
So it would be under A, yeah, section 3, number A, no new license or transfer of commercial cannabis license. So that does not prohibit current licensees who are currently legally licensed within that jurisdiction to continue to operate their business. It would just be for new licenses.
I'm sorry, Margaret, one more time.
I apologize. If you look at section 3A, it says during the term of this interim ordinance, no new license or transferred commercial cannabis license shall be issued in the Lewiston opt-out extension area. So current licensees in the Lewiston opt-out extension area can continue to operate if we will not be issuing any new licenses in that area. If Supervisor Grove's motion were to pass, it would remove the transferred commercial cannabis license, and it would allow for licenses that are currently active in the opt-out extension to be transferred to other individuals in the opt-out extension on the same piece of property or on a property outside of the opt-out extension.
Do we need,
So, correct me if I'm wrong, Margaret, but what I'm asking for is that there's no new development, that the impacts of the cannabis that there are static and remain the same. And so for this period of, if you want to call it cooling down or for more study, we freeze it right now where we're at for a time period until we can catch up and or look at new rules and regulations. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Except I'm confused because your motion removed legally.
just for clarification, do we need language that a transfer from a site outside the opt-out could occur, a transfer to a property in the opt-out? So we said transfer, so that also can happen. It can happen.
Yes, so that's a good catch, thank you.
Yeah.
My intent is not to allow any further development within this zone, but to allow the development to stay static at its current levels. So that would mean that you could transfer an existing property within the opt-out zone, but no new transfers, or they could transfer that out of the opt-out zone, but no new transfers into the opt-out zone, so we hold that.
Okay.
So,
If you give me one moment, I'm actually trying to draft up the language so we can have it clear.
thank you. She reads my brainwaves somehow. So Jill, to answer your question, that what is there remains there. There's already an impact, but the impact doesn't increase. It doesn't matter who owns the impact is there, is my thought.
But that impact, if an individual who holds that license at this time would be able to transfer that license to a new property owner at some point,
Yeah.
correct? Your motion includes that possibility.
But from an environmental or neighborhood impact, the name on the license doesn't matter.
I see what you're doing, and I appreciate that, but I think that a balance that I would like to find, if it's possible, is to allow those people who have invested in their properties to be able to continue to do so because they've made that investment, but to say that they can then transfer to, say, a new owner just allows that to perpetuate over time. And I think that the goal of the community would be that over time, not only would it not grow, but it would not perpetuate. And so if you allow to transfer out, that would be great. We want to encourage that.
Well, my argument for you there is that's not the role of an urgency ordinance. At some point, so let's take the Rush Creek, for example. We are now coming up on 1 year that we've had it, and within the next year, we have to come up with a ordinance that will be fully vetted through the Planning Commission and through the Board of Supervisors. And to me, that's the time that you discuss if you're wanting to encourage sunsets or other things. Here, we're just trying to hold things static until we're buying time.
It's more of a moratorium.
That's what it is. It's creating
More people that can read my mind.
Okay.
So we got a motion and a second, is that correct?
If you wouldn't mind just reading what the new section 3A would read, and again, this is open to corrections by the maker of the motion. But I understood you to say, during the term of the interim ordinance, no new commercial cannabis cultivation licenses shall be issued within the Lewiston opt-out extension area. Current commercial cannabis cultivation licensees within the Lewiston opt-out areas can transfer their licenses to properties outside of the Lewiston opt-out extension or to properties currently licensed for commercial cannabis cultivation within the Lewiston opt-out area.
For clarification, does that allow it so that owner of a property, licensed property there, can sell to a new owner?
Correct.
Okay.
So what it allows is transferring outside of the Lewiston opt-out area or transferring to a current licensed property. Meaning you can transfer it, and let me clarify because I want to make sure we understand this. Let me try one more time.
I just want to make sure that a new owner could take over that if the business wanted to sell their business to another business owner. They were waiting for Mark.
Sorry. It's okay. I believe what you're saying is that the current commercial cannabis cultivation licensees within the Lewiston opt-out extension can transfer their licenses to property outside of the Lewiston opt-out extension or to a new property owner if they sell their property within the Lewiston opt-out area. I believe that may clarify it.
Yeah.
And is it clear enough that it has to be the same property?
Well, it has to be their property, so they have to have, yes.
It says their
It
property.
says their property. So it would have to be
But
a
if they
current,
owned another piece of property, they couldn't transfer it over that.
no, it says their property. And I'll say this property, to make it more clear.
And I would like to have some comments if we're done discussing.
I think, yeah.
We heard a lot of stuff today, and we all can filter what we heard as some of it nonsense, some of it very valuable. But this area has been impacted negatively, and one of the issues is this area was not against commercial cannabis when we formed these. And it wasn't until commercial cannabis moved that they realized the impacts. I think these people that didn't see, or the ones that I know or talk to, they didn't see what would happen. And so this is why they were late to the game, where other parts of Lewiston were, that made their opinions several years ago. So to say that there's no impact from odor, for example, as we heard today, is just preposterous. I think it's important that we look at, in the future, cumulative impacts that you can have one business, but 10 or too many, and there's someplace in between where that line is acceptable for all people. And I think that's what we need to find in the future. And spread these out and respect, both parties' property rights. One side says, I have a property right to do my business, and the other says I have a property right to enjoy my life and my home. So where planning comes in, the rule of planning is when it's deciding when one person's property right stops and the other person starts. And I hope that this community doesn't get terribly divided by this, and then in the next time period that we can come together and have sensible planning in here that works on all sides. Thank you.
Well said. Any other comments or discussion points?
May I ask the maker of the motion to modify his motion to include changing the word hemp to commercial cannabis within the ordinance as well?
Yes. So accepted.
And the second? And I'm happy to read it one more time, the modifications to A, and I will read it hopefully slowly. So it would say, during the term of this interim ordinance, no new commercial cannabis cultivations licenses shall be issued within the Lewiston opt-out extension area. Current commercial cannabis cultivation licensees within the Lewiston opt-out extension area can transfer their licenses to properties outside of the Lewiston opt-out extension area or to a new owner of this legally licensed property within the Lewiston opt-out extension area pursuant to county code.
Everyone clear on that? Emma, can you please call roll call?
All right, we have a motion to accept as presented with the revision to section 3A with the language provided by county council and changing the language regarding industrial hemp to commercial cannabis. The motion was by Supervisor Groves and the second was by Supervisor Cox. Supervisor Cox, how do you vote?
Yes.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you everyone for your time, consideration, and productive time.
Did y'all address the sunset?
It got removed.
It's not in there.
Okay.
And this item will come back in before the 45-day period's up again for an extension.
All right, that's that.
Wow, these are ducks.
Yeah. I think that's key to doing that.
Did I say Leon? Sorry, Leon. Great.
We were,
Sorry.
it started at 4:20 last time. Is there any?
Debbie warning about, and that's also what she wanted.
That shouldn't take very long.
They have to have a quorum.
So we have to be done by 4 o'clock.
We don't have to be done with like, our last one. We started at 4.
But it's free to the other kids are not there. If they have to wait 10 hours more, I'm not saying they don't eat lunch.
Yeah, I was
Maybe
just-
for me.
I'm supposed to.
I like that.
It'll be on my other phone. From Like something. Our charge is right.
All right.
I've hired a new assistant, so.
Young.
Well, I like him young, yeah, you have to hang him up, so, giving all legal advice.
How long is our break here? Do we have a set break?
I don't think that we actually went to break. I think we already
Just gives us left.
Did you take a break?
No, he did not, no, he just walked
He
out.
just ran away.
Oh, yeah,
He left.
it's still in session, yes, keep it rolling.
So.
Oh, we're going. All right, what are we doing next?
I don't know, I guess the vice chair can take over if you want.
I don't even know where I had on the agenda.
We're at 6.1 now.
We have to go back up because we took that one first, right? Okay.
Oh, where did Jeremy go? So, as vice chair, can I say we should adjourn until 1:45? Take a 10-minute break, or?
Do you want to do lunch break? I think he was planning on keeping it through because the remainder items are not that long.
I would.
No, Sid's still in session. Sid, your chair.
Where's the chair?
The chairman ran away, so I'm gonna take over. Would you guys like to
Oh,
use
he's
that?
recusing or something?
We just left.
10-minute break.
I would request that we do break shortly because I'm expecting a phone call from at 1:30. So if you guys would entertain the thought of coming back at 1:45 or 2 o'clock or whatever you would want to do, I think that would be great.
Do you think that Keith can get to LAFCO on time with the remainder
Oh,
of the?
we won't get there.
I mean, I know you'll get there. So is that, if we come back at 1:45, do you think that the rest of our stuff to do with closed session also? Or we'll be out
Closed
here?
session won't take more than a half an hour.
What are you gonna do in 25 minutes?
I'm not doing that, I'm just sitting there. You're the one who left.
I'm gonna,
We're considering a break.
and it doesn't matter if you, I will have to leave here at 1:30 for a short time though. I have an important phone call.
Okay, do you mind if we proceed during that time without you and we won't go into closed session without you?
Well, you can, yeah. But
Is there any item that you need to have input on?
I don't see anything that I would really have to, I would really hate to miss, but.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to proceed, go ahead, and I will step out here in a few minutes and take a phone call.
Sounds good.
Shouldn't take long, I hope.
All right, and we're gonna keep on going. Liam's just taking a 2-minute break. I'll start, and we will not go anywhere without Liam's. County matters. These items include non-routine or controversial matters and are listed alphabetically by department. A member of the board staff, oh, I already did this, I'm sorry. Auditor Controller 6.1, approve a budget adjustment for County Audit Department 1101, increasing services and supplies by $1,825, and approve a budget adjustment for contingency Department 9901, decreasing provisions for contingency by $1,825, increase in general fund appropriations in the amount of $1,825. Current balance of contingency is $334,695. Christine, go ahead.
When doing our budget for fiscal year 2021, it
Christine,
was.
excuse me.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Take your
Penny.
mask down.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Sure, that's much better. Okay, so when we were doing the budgets last year for this fiscal year, there was just an oversight error, and the numbers that we had were from the prior year, and so we fell short by $1,825. So we're asking for contingency to cover the shortfall to pay one of the claims.
Any additional questions?
Sir.
All right. Is there any public comment on this item?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
All right. With that, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Hello, we've got a motion and a second. Please pull the board.
Motion by Supervisor Groves, second by Supervisor Frazier. Supervisor Frazier, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves.
Aye.
Supervisor Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
See how fast we move without Liam?
All right. 6.2, approve a budget adjustment for public defender realignment, Department 8501, increasing revenues and transfers up by $1,914, and approve a budget adjustment for public defender Department 2170, increasing transfers in by $1,914. Decray, I think it's decrease in general fund appropriations in the amount of $1,914. Current cash balance for public defender realignment, Fund 501 is $954.26.
I apologize, that probably should have not gone into county matters, but since it's here, basically it's just state funds that come to the county to cover public defender costs, to help cover public defender costs. And we received more revenue than anticipated. And so we're just wanting to increase that and put it towards our public defender costs.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Any public comment on this item?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
I move to adopt 6.2 as presented.
Second.
Emma.
Motion by Supervisor Cox, second by Supervisor Groves. Supervisor Groves, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier.
Aye.
Supervisor Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk of the Board, item 6.3, waive provision 2C of the county fee waiver policy, find that the Weaverville Lions Club 4th of July activities provide a public benefit and approve the application of waiver of county fees, waiving general services, load and park rental fees in the amount of $691, and solid waste fees in the amount of $832. Potential loss of revenue to the general services in the amount of $691, and solid waste in the amount of $832. I don't know. Clerk of the Board. Yeah.
And this is just a standard procedure we do year after year, except we had to skip last year, so I'm excited that we get to do this year, which means our 4th of July festivities are back.
Dun, dun, dun. Any additional questions? Any public comment on this item?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Hello.
Motion by Supervisor Groves, second by Supervisor Frazier. Supervisor Frazier, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves.
Aye.
Supervisor Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. County Administrative Office, item 6.4, approve a budget adjustment for probation asset seizure, Department 8594, increasing transfers up by $7,420. Approve a budget adjustment for asset seizure, DA, Department 8588, increasing transfers up by $7,610. Approve a budget adjustment for District Attorney Department 2100, increasing transfers in by $15,030 and other charges by $24,895. And approve a budget adjustment for Contingency General Fund Department 9901, decreasing provisions for contingency by $9,867, increasing general fund appropriations in the amount of $24,895. Current cash balance and probation asset seizure fund 594 is $116,052.74. Asset seizure DA fund 588 is $251,318.43. The current balance of contingency $332,870 after prior contingency budget adjustment. Any technical questions?
I'm going to go off memory. I believe it was November of 2020, County Council was authorized to negotiate on behalf of the county with a debt, essentially a trustee through assets seized by the county, and she did so in April, and the court has ordered us to repay the $24,895. So you're giving the county authorization to make that payment.
All right, any additional questions? Any public comment?
I have no new comments and no new chats.
All right. We can entertain a motion. So moved. 6.4 as presented.
Second. Just one real quick. The court's ruled that we had to pay.
Yes.
The court's ruled we were able to negotiate it down. So we were able to get a savings on it.
Emma, please pull the board.
Motion by Supervisor Brown, second by Supervisor Groves. Supervisor Groves, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown.
Aye.
Supervisor Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Item 6.5, adopt a resolution which adopts the preliminary budget for fiscal year 21-22, including reserves, enterprise funds, independent special districts in the amount of $123,824,509.00. That's all it says.
Yeah, so thank you, Chair, members of the board. This is our formal approval of the preliminary budget for the 21-22 year as, what was it, 123 million, on the glasses on, so it looked like $824,500. This number will be different when we come back in October because we'll be going through, we've had every one of the departments submit their budgets, and this is the number that comes through with their budgets they submitted to us. Now we go through, as both Supervisor Cox and Supervisor Gogan sat through last year, we go through it, dissect every single budget, every single line to determine the needs and revenues coming in and going out of the county. So we had attached the capital asset list. That will also change. It may increase. If we do a good job, it may decrease. But this time what it does allows us to start utilizing and spending our 21-22 budget as of July 1st. But the board gives final approval on the 22nd of September. And that will it will look much different, but this gives us spending authority at this point to keep the lights on.
Do you remember what the number was this time last year? It seemed like we were
About 140 million, I think, 140 something. But that included, we had the jail project in that, so it was.
It seemed like it was a lot higher. So.
Yeah.
Okay. I will accept that motion. 6.5.
No, is there public comment on this item?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
Okay, we got a motion. Yeah, second? I'll second. We got a motion and a second on that.
Motion by Supervisor Gogan, second by Supervisor Brown. Supervisor Brown, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Thank you.
Environmental Health, item 6.6. Authorize the Director of Environmental Health to apply to Cal EPA to be the regulatory agency and to become the agency lead for the Trinity County, California Unified Program Agency, known as CUPA. Fiscal impact is unknown at this time. Supervisor Groves.
Yeah, at this time, I'm going to choose to recuse. I'm not quite sure. I have requested this as a civilian or a non-civilian structure as a member of the public due to the costs and the problems that this program has caused outwardly. I do believe that most businesses in the county do need to be part of this program, but since I don't have that information real readily handy to me, I will recuse off the side.
So Keith, would you think that my store also would fall in the same category as yourself?
Do you have a Coupa license?
I have no idea. I don't do anything.
He should.
This
This
is my point.
We follow all the rules.
He should. There's
If we
hundreds
should, we
of
do.
businesses that should.
Yeah, we have all, we don't break rules.
I understand.
You know my wife.
I would ask that this item be continued until Supervisor Frazier returns to the room so we have quorum.
Oh, okay. Let's do that. Good.
So I should recuse myself.
We're just going to pass for now.
Till Dan gets
We'll come back. All right, Health and Human Services, item 6.7, approve amendment number 4 to the agreement with Prentice Law and PC, increasing the monthly cost and changing all reference to Child Protective Services, CPS, to Child Welfare Services, CWS, and provide county council services. No impact to the general fund, $7,000 from Child Welfare Services allocations. Is this Shelley?
This is Liz Hamilton, Director of Health and Human Services. Thank you, Chair. We are asking for an amendment to increase our annual amount by $7,000 to County Council for investigation services for runaway or exploited youth.
All right, any questions from the board? Hearing none, is there any public comment on this item?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
No, go ahead.
You can have it. I don't care.
Third.
At the end of the year, we're gonna count them up, see who wins.
And we go ahead and pull the board.
Motion by Supervisor Groves, second by Supervisor Gogan. Supervisor Gogan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves.
Aye.
Supervisor Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jerry?
Yeah.
Should we motion to public next one?
Human Resources, item 6.8, pursuant to Trinity County Code Section 2.60.410A, authorized hiring candidate number 00588, employee ID number 02399 as Code Compliance Specialist I at range G200 Step E in the Cannabis Department effective July 1st, 2021. Approximate cost and salary and benefits per month for Code Compliance Specialist I at A Step is $6,508 and at E Step is $7,710. Shelley?
Kathleen Shelley Nelson, HR Director. So the Planning Department Cannabis Division had unsuccessfully ran a recruitment for a vacancy position of Code Compliance Specialist between September 2020 and January 2021. The recruitment was then reflown again back in March of 2021, and the applicant that scored the highest amongst the interview panel has been an associate planner with the Planning Department since August of 2018. The individual holds a bachelor's degree in environmental studies. The experience and education well exceed the minimum requirements of this position. And the department would like to offer C-STEP to this candidate, which would be commensurate with the education and work experience for this position. They are requesting above a E-STEP.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
This is just not route from ourselves.
Yes.
We do. We don't route from ourselves. We promote and encourage and transfer.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Any additional questions? Okay, can you entertain the motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have no public comment on this item for the
I think I asked. Didn't ask, no? All right.
We don't have any. Are you ready for me to pull the board?
Please.
And I would request that Supervisor Frazier
I was
wasn't here from
going
the
to say,
beginning of it.
I will abstain because I missed half the presentation at least.
Motion by Supervisor Groves, second by Supervisor Cox. Supervisor Cox, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves.
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan.
Aye.
Supervisor Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, we did planning and zoning, on to let's go backwards here, sorry. We're gonna go back to environmental health, item 6.6, authorize the director of environmental health to apply for Cal EPA to be the regulatory agency to become the agency lead for Trinity County, California Unified Program Agency. Fiscal impact is unknown at this time.
As I stated before, since I lobbied for this as a business owner, I'm going to recuse off this item.
Okay, thank you.
I will also.
Oh, that's why you guys moved that one.
All right.
Why did you skip?
All right. Any technical, or you kind of already talked about it, any technical questions for Dan you need a refresher on, since you weren't here maybe?
I can give you a little bit of history. We're one of the only 2 counties still left that Cal EPA is regulating directly. The other county is Imperial County, and Imperial County is in the process of taking over the CUPA program from the state. And this would do our county a lot of good. We respond to all hazardous waste, hazardous materials emergencies already, and it's unfunded. Instead, we're sending our funds to Sacramento and being managed out of Imperial County, which is bordered with Mexico. And we see an inspector every once in a while, and it's very hard for our folks to get things done. But it's also puts a big dent in environmental health's pocket because we have to still continue to do the hazardous materials response without the funding that goes in and the funding from our businesses that pay for hazardous materials business plan even though no response comes from the state. So
Is this part of the rural reimbursement program?
we would be reimbursed $60,000 per year, and that should go up to $100,000 per year soon. And on top of the fees that we would request.
So when I recall Supervisor Groves speaking during public comment on this issue, he was really frustrated with the way that his license fees have escalated over the last few years. When we own the program, do we set the fees, or are those still dictated by the state?
That's correct. We would set the fees. There is a surge charge, which is the emergency response, California emergency response system, that it's a surge charge on each business license. Business that's being licensed. The Coupa regulated facilities had an increase of 91 to 382% per license type. Some businesses like the county, certain county agencies get 5 or 6 different license types per facility. So just to give you an idea, some businesses, their fees increased by $9,000, $10,000, $12,000.
Not that it's a game changer, but what does this do to your workload?
It will increase my workload in the beginning, but I look forward to being able to hire another employee that I can dedicate to emergency response and hazardous materials.
Just for this program alone?
Just for this program alone.
Wow.
All right. Any other questions? Any comment from the public? Hearing none?
To adopt 6.6 as presented.
I will second.
All right, I've got a motion and a second, please call the board.
Motion by Supervisor Cox, second by Supervisor Frazier. Supervisor Frazier, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. So now we are at transportation.
610?
Yep.
All right.
All right, transportation, item 6.10, adopt a resolution approving approving the fiscal year 21-22 list of projects, work plan for funding from the road maintenance and rehabilitation account, RMRA. No impact to the general fund revenue to RMRA fund of $2,009,953 for fiscal year 21-22. Director Tibbet.
Thank you. So I was all ready to go to lunch, but you kept going.
Sorry.
It's okay. As I listed on here, there's a annual allocation that we get from SB1, which was the gas tax bill that Governor Brown signed back in 2017. And what it requires is that every year we have to make an allocation of certain funds that we get from that gas tax that was collected to road construction. We essentially have to tell the state before we get the money, this is what we're going to do with the money over the next year. At the time that SB1 came out, the board had identified 3 priorities that we were going to follow, which was, first of all, was to pay matching funds if we had any disasters. And unfortunately, that's continued since we initially got it. So if we have needs for funds to match the matches that we have, we draw out of these funds to produce that match. And this year we had the August fire, and I thought that a lot of the projects we probably weren't going to get to until next fiscal year because we have to do environmental clearance. So I didn't program them into this year. I'm going to program the August fire recovery into next year. And then the second one is to match federal projects that we have. Usually we have to produce 11.47% match for any bridge that we're building or any safety project that we do that has federal funds involved. So we use RMRA for the match that. And then finally, we maintain a pavement management program which goes through and has the length and width of all the streets in the county, and also it has the pavement conditions based on inspections that we've done over the last, we've been doing it now for 7 years, and every year we go and look at 20% of the county roads that are in there. And this pavement management program goes in and assesses the money that you have, and based on that money, it tells you what roads you want to go and maintain. And usually what it'll do is it'll try to keep your roads that are in really good shape. In order to fix those, it's relatively inexpensive. It's about $3 to $4 a square yard to fix a road in good shape. So a lot of times they'll point you to those roads that are in good shape to go and do maintenance on them. And you have to find other ways to fix the roads that are in bad shape, but those roads usually will cost between $28 and $31 a square yard, unless they're in really, really bad shape, then it'll cost about $50 a square yard to fix. Our annual maintenance, just to hold the line where we're at right now with the pavement quality, would be we need $5.7 million, and we get $2 million. So we're, as you can see, we're short. And so what the best we can do is try to maintain the stuff that we have in good shape as best we can, and then find ways to beg, borrow, and steal to fix the stuff that's kind of gone to the wayside. And so with that in mind, we ran all the information through the program about 1.5 years ago and came up with a 5-year plan. And I'll talk about the 5-year plan here in a minute a little more. But based on that 5-year plan, it kind of gives us direction as to what roads are we planning on doing, because a lot of stuff you want to know about a year beforehand so you can do the patching and the paving or all the incidental work to get things ready to go. So moving on to RMRA allocation for this year, it's just a touch over $2 million. It's $2,009,983. One of the things that we talked about when in past boards when we first got the money was we wanted to see essentially what we were doing every year, and then strategize on equipment purchases to bring our unit costs down from, like for instance where I was saying it's 28 to 31 for full depth reclamation on a street that's not in that bad of shape. If we had the equipment and we were doing it with our crews, I could actually probably draw that cost down about 20 to 30%. So we're at a point now where we've identified the equipment that we do need to replace. And I have that list of equipment on there. Probably the biggest one is the chip spreader, which is fondly known as the Flaherty in our group. And that one was purchased in 1972. And it has these little switches that toggles that you got to pull up and down to get going, where everything now today is automated, run on different sensors that can allow us to do a much quicker much quicker chip seal to get the road, and also it allows us to adjust the depths where the chip seal right now we put down is just one depth, open or closed. So anyways, that's probably the biggest thing we have for this year, and that's a one-time thing for this year. And then in the years following, we'll probably ask for an asphalt paving box so that we can lay asphalt in certain areas. Right now, we borrow a asphalt box from a local vendor, and we've been using that, but eventually we'll have to look for our own thing. But I didn't want to forego any repairs on the roads this year, so we did identify some, again, coming from the 5-year plan. And that was the East Side Road, and then we wanted to fix Tom Bell. Although Tom Bell was scheduled for 2024, we moved it forward because the jail's now done. And I wanted to get to Tom Bell because all those trucks has kind of put a lot of wear and tear on it, so I wanted to keep it in good shape. So we're going to get out there and hit it with a double chip seal this year. And then also, because over in the August fire area, they've asked us to hold off a little bit on doing reconstruction because of environmental documents and everything that discussed earlier. It's going to push a lot of the construction that we do out till next year. But I have a lot of money tied up already in South County on some repairs on Xenia Lake Mountain. So what I wanted to do was take the money out of Xenia Lake Mountain, put it over to Big Creek and Hayfork and do that work now, and use the Big Creek Hayfork money that was going to come up next year and program that back to Xenia Lake Mountain so that we can get that road done. But I didn't want to let something sit idle for a year while we had a chance to use it in other locations. So in here, I have these handouts, and I'll go through them real quick. But the first one is the 5-year plan. And the one that's shaded, there's a bunch of stuff on there that's shaded, and that is work that has been completed. So we're not going back to do that work. And there's work that's in the green. That work represents the work that we were going to do this year. The work that was in the yellow is orange, was work that was scheduled for last year. And we're going to be doing this year, but it's already essentially budgeted for, so I don't have to re-budget it. There are some projects that were in blue, and that represents what was supposed to be scheduled this year, but I pushed it off to next year to be done. And then there's one project that was in red, and that was the money that I said I wanted to disencumber on Xenia Mountain Lake where it was already set aside. And I wanted to take that mountain money and use it over on Big Creek to take care of Big Creek this year. And then we were going to reprogram that money again next year. So it's money that we have to, that I'm committed to making sure gets spent. So that's how I took the 5-year plan to develop the next page, which is the action plan for this year. And the ones that are in the separate colors there really represented the different districts that were going to have work done this year. And the orange that was at the bottom represents projects that were again funded in previous years that we'll be doing this year. But as you can see, it's all the same ones that I talked about, which is East Side and East Fork and East Side roads. And then doing a couple patches, but Tom Bell being the big one in Weaverville. And then doing a small section of Denny Road that's going to go along with some other work that's happening downriver. The Big Creek Road in Hayfork, and then there's no work really proposed down in Ruthenia or Kitten Palm for this year because of the recovery. But next year we'll have quite a bit going on down there, mainly starting to really hit Xenia Lake Mountain and also catching up on Peak Road. I was going to probably take Peak Road up a year and hit it next year. The page following that is the slurry seal list. And this is a list that was developed. We planned on getting to most of these roads last year, but unfortunately the fire came. When it came, it pretty much hammered us. And so we weren't able to do any of those roads, but we will be hopefully hitting them here in July, August this year. It's one of the things you want to get while it's really still hot, because slurry heats. It adheres to the pavement much better when it has time to settle and cure. Finally, on the last page, I wanted to show you the fiscal numbers of what the remaining work is that we've had over the years on decisions that have been made in the past on projects that haven't been completed yet. The only projects that I show on this list were projects that were still not done, and that the projects that have done on them mean that they were completed within or going to be completed by the end of the fiscal year within the last 6 months. So you see a lot of projects on there that say done. They're actually outside. They're out there right now today, and they've been out there yesterday chip sealing roads. So they're out there working right now on a lot of these. And so the last piece is the resolution. That's the resolution that I'll ship off to the CTC if you accept this. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Board members, go for it. Any technical questions?
So basically, that 5-year projection of hierarchy of, work to be done, the program sets that, because length of the road, width of the road, and then I guess you must enter, hey, we see potholes or whatever, and then it prioritizes it?
Yes, it goes through and it looks at the different pavement distresses such as rutting, alligator, potholes, just different types of stresses that it has on it. And it rates it from anywhere from 99 being in great shape to 10 or 20, which is a pothole-ridden road. Then what it does is it takes that area and then applies different treatments that would be required there, and it calculates how much that would cost. And what it does is it tries to give you the best increase in pavement quality based on the money that you have available and the amount, the square footage that you have to repair on the roads.
Do you depend on people speaking into that program? Like, you and I looked at that in your office sometime, and you showed me how people can kind of log in and give input to, hey, this road is about this new pothole or whatever. I don't picture that you drive throughout the whole county and look at every road, so
Now that
other people help, or how does that work?
what I showed you there was the incident reporting page or the hazard reporting sheet. And that is for us to go out and we hear about a specific pothole and we'll go out and repair that on through a different team. This information is collected by having people that are experienced with analyzing road distresses. And they go out and they analyze sections. They'll take a mile of road and they'll go out and analyze 4 different or 5 different 20 or 100 foot long sections of that road to get an overall appearance of what the condition is of that road essentially overall. And what we do is we try to take a look at 20% of the roads every year. So each road's looked at once every 5 years, and that gives us the PCI of that road section, which is usually a 1 mile section. And then that's what the computer uses to calculate the benefit analysis.
Got it. Thank you.
Additional questions?
Yeah, just on a little more personal note. In front of the post office in Dudley City, those potholes there, I think are county, and they are huge. I mean, I'm hiring a lifeguard this summer. They're gonna fill the water and get a lifeguard position in. If you have the opportunity to stop by there and look, I mean, they are fully.
Are they in the road or?
They are right, yeah, halfway in the road, halfway where the people park.
Okay, we'll take a look at them.
That'd be great, thank you very much.
Any public comment on this item?
PCI.
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
All right, thanks. Bring back up board.
Sure.
So, no comment, move to accept?
I'll second.
Oh. Emmett, go ahead and bring
Want
it.
them or left?
I have to wait for permission.
Oh, we're on autopilot now.
Motion by Supervisor Groves, second by Supervisor Gogan. Supervisor Gogan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves,
Aye.
Supervisor Cox,
Hi.
Supervisor Frazier,
Aye.
Supervisor Brown.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank
All right, that concludes our open session meeting. We're going to go into closed session. Item 7.1, Government Code Section 54954.5C, Conference with Legal Counsel, Legal Litigation, number of cases 2, Trinity Action Association, Inc. versus County of Trinity et al., Trinity County Superior Court Case number 19CV001, and also Will Height versus Trinity County Superior Court Case number 21CV054. Is there any public comment on this item?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
Okay. Item 7.2, Government Code Section 54954.55E, Public Employee Evaluation, County Administrative Officer. Is there any public comment on this item?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
Okay, thank you so much, Emma. Thank you for the public for joining us on today's meeting.
Are we adjourned?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.